Gentlemen, I will call the Budget, Finance, and Investment Committee to order. It seems like a long time since we have met because the committees were not formed, so we did not have a September meeting. But it's nice to see some of the old gang back on this committee. We will have a new member joining us in November, Commissioner Charlie Baum. The first item on our agenda is to approve minutes, and of course that does go back to the August 4th meeting.
Move to approve.
Thank you, Commissioner Jernigan.
Second.
Seconded by Commissioner Sandlin. Any additions or corrections? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. That motion carries. Okay, we are ready for our investment report from our trustee, and from the trustee's office, Julie Bratcher is joining us this evening. And you should find her report at your place. And we'll begin with your investment report.
Nothing has really changed with our investments. The rate did go up a little, not much. We had one CD that we renewed for a year. It was $10 million, and the rest is the same.
Motion to approve, Madam Chairman.
Thank you, Commissioner Sandlin. Seconded by Commissioner Jernigan. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Now, gentlemen, if you will turn to your section 3 in your notebook, Ms. Bratcher will present her budget amendment.
We are requesting to move $2,700 to a new data processing services line item, and $1,000 from office supplies and $1,700 from postal charges to fund a new web servicing company for payment of taxes and a more user-friendly website service that we need.
Motion to approve.
Commissioner Jordan.
Second.
Seconded by Commissioner Sandlin. Any questions or discussion?
We're not able to do that through Brian or any of these folks.
Not as far as, Brian is doing the design part of the website, but Sturgis is doing the payment and the search, which we aren't able to do through our OIT department.
This is accepting credit card payments.
Any further discussion or questions, comments?
Yeah, by accepting credit card payments, is that going to be beneficial to us? Is it going to get us up a higher percentage?
We're
already doing that. I was answering the question about Brian's office doing it. That's why we have an outside.
Okay. And so we're not doing it efficiently now, is what we're saying, or we can do it more efficiently? Is that a better way to put it?
User-friendly.
User-friendly is. It's going to reduce the labor intensity of answering questions that problems have been coming from. They're going to smooth this out.
And the customer is able to print their own receipt when they make payment. It's just going to be easier. They can print their bills. And also, I think it's going to help with the title companies, too.
It will. They have a lot of problems with the one that we have now.
Well, okay. And you'll revisit this next year, I mean, at the end of this fiscal year? Because I just, when I hear these user-friendly things, I think of this, what is it, the STAR system that came through the school system that was mandated by the state?
I'll say that from Jeff.
And, I've heard that word used before as well now.
This may not be the appropriate time, but do we accept installments on the property tax? We do. I know the city just changed their
they just started
rules and start that. I thought we did that.
Yeah.
I just want to make sure we
we did.
Any further discussion? Call the roll, please.
Commissioner Jernigan.
Yes.
Commissioner Jordan.
Yes.
Commissioner P.
Yes.
Commissioner Sandlin.
Aye.
Commissioner Schaefer.
Yes.
Commissioner Ely.
Yes. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Gentlemen, if you will locate your fund condition reports, you will notice you have a report for August and September, but the finance director is going to concentrate on September. We did receive the August report in the mail, so if you will find the September one, please. And she will begin with the development tax.
As of September, we had received after the adjustment, $306,000 in development tax. It compares to $329,000 for last year. But we are still on track to make our budget projections.
Are we ready to move to cash balances?
Cash balances. At the end of September, our cash balance was $112,097,383, with $107,420,000 being operating funds, $4,677,000 being borrowed funds. Starting at the top of what I want to bring your attention to is 118, the ambulance service, $914,000 compared to 2.7 last fiscal year at this time. Last year was the first year that the ambulance was in a fund all of its own, and we had to do an internal borrowing of $3 million to begin their operations last year. Of course, that was paid off before the fiscal year ended. So this $914,000 is money that they generated last year and are operating on now until the property tax comes in. The other item is down on the bottom, closer to the bottom. We're going to be talking about, for the schools, are requesting funds to use it for the design of the new high school. I just want to bring your attention to those old projects, the Rockville Middle, Browns Chapel campus. Just that grouping right there, there's $1.3 million on hand that when the school board comes and talks, this is the money that we're going to use, could use, internally until we go to borrow for the whole school in total. Then we'll replace these so that we will keep the identity of high schools and elementary, middle school separate. But this is what they're talking about, using the internal funds to fund the design of the high school.
So we're totally done with Browns Chapel as far as invoices out now. There's nearly $1 million sitting here.
There's some odd things floating about, but yes.
I know the step system was being held up for a while, getting all that billed out and everything. And
It's done.
So all I wanted to demonstrate, this is where they're talking about that they'll have the funds available to move forward with that.
So the 07 repairs, 06 repairs and all that, so these could be zeroed out tonight,
Well,
or close.
I just want you to understand that we do try hard to keep the elementary money separate from the high school money, is that we would use that money until we went to the market and replaced it so that money would be there for the next elementary project that they'd have.
this is shared money already.
That's shared money, that's what I'm saying, that we
Yeah.
try to keep it. But until that point, you could use that for the high school.
Part of that middle school money is also shared, isn't it?
Yes, the 6th grade portion is shared. Okay, so if you go,
Find your revenue sheet.
yes, so flip over to the short page so you can see the bottom. When you see that the combined operations of the general fund, the ambulance fund being 8.8% complete, I'm just on that very bottom row. Don't panic, because the result of that, the reason why that is low, is the Nissan payment in lieu of tax, which is over $5 million, was receipted October 1, and these previous 4 years, it was receipted in September 30th. If you go back to this 06 year, that year it was receipted October 1 too. So that skews you looking at the bottom. Had we received it and receipted in by 9/30, your bottom number would be 15.93% complete. So now you can see that we're in line of where we would typically be at this time of year. Now, another item that's a little skewed, if you look at total fees county offices, we've collected almost 1.4 million at this point. That's 22.5% compared to, typically 4% at this point in all the other years. What happened there is when the constitutional officers change, they close out their offices and all excess funds are deposited are turned over to the counties. And then the fee offices start at zero. So that's where you see a large boost coming in as a one-time thing. As a one-time thing every 4 years if the office change. Office changes.
It could be a one-time thing every 20 years.
Yes, which is what a lot of that is. So that's the thing I want to bring to you. On the general fund. If you flip it over on Fund 116, the thing that stands out is this 196.91% complete, and under total other local revenues, that is the result of the county doing their own recycling. The county is collecting, hauling its own, and getting the benefit 100% of all the recycle returns. So this 104, almost 150,000, we budgeted 75,000, so they've made their budget almost twice over in the first 3 months on that revenue.
Mr. Noblin's in the room. Appreciate it.
Okay. So,
The company that we used to use, Alliance, they are bankrupt now, if I'm not mistaken?
I don't know. I don't think I could address that.
Okay, on this one.
and that's the flip side to this. You're getting all the benefit and not paying to have it disposed of either. I mean, so you're just seeing the revenue side of it.
We are having to haul all of the
There is additional
commodities.
expense.
There is some expense, but it's, we're still, it's not much compared to this revenue.
Okay.
Okay. Down to Fund 125, that was the development tax. You see nothing. That, just a reminder that that development tax, as soon as it comes in, we are automatically recording the revenue, half to the general fund and half to debt service. Go down to Fund 122, the drug fund. They had one really huge deposit in September of $144,000 proceeds from confiscated property, so that just skews that number because they don't typically have that large of a deposit this early in the year. Then in 151, which is the debt service fund, you see a really large number at the bottom of total other sources, and we'll talk a little bit more about this, but this is the bond proceeds. We did the refunding, and this is the showing that the money that came in, and of course then a lot of it all goes back out to the escrow agent, but we it does show up as our revenue. We'll talk more about that later, but if you were looking at your fund condition report, that might catch your attention.
Yeah.
But that's what that is.
164
It's not as good as that looks because it all went back out. And that's all I have.
That's all she has.
Second.
Commissioner Jernigan, seconded by Commissioner Jordan. Any further discussion or questions from Mrs. Nolan? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. That motion carries. We're ready now for our insurance report, and if you will locate that, Mrs. Stinson has already placed that at our table. Mrs. Stinson, good evening.
Good evening, how are you?
You have several things, beginning, of course, first with your financials.
Yes, ma'am. I provided for you tonight the August financials. September's weren't ready yet, so we can cover that today. If you refer to the insurance fund performance documentation, the per employee per month for medical dental for August is $765.18. That's going to be compared to $820.52 for prior year. When you combine the medical and dental performance with the Care Here results, you are at $783.17 compared to $867.16 for prior year. Overall, we are currently at a negative trend. We expect to see that. We will start having the premium deposits from the Board of Ed. Their first payroll is in September, so we should see a positive shift in that number beginning with the September reporting period. Are there any questions about where we're at currently on the insurance fund? Okay. Looking at the OJI report, at last meeting, Commissioner Schaefer had asked for the number of open workers' comp claims. We currently have 24 open claims. We are continuing to close those out. Year to date, we're at $119,817 compared to same time prior year
we're at 175,304, so we are still seeing some positive effect through the OJI program. Of course, that number will continue to change as well the more work comp claims that we close out. Are there any questions in regards to that?
Okay, Chair will entertain a motion on the financials.
Second.
Commissioner Jernigan, seconded by Commissioner Schaefer. Any further discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. That motion carries. Mrs. Stinson, you have a recommendation from the Insurance Committee to approve a consulting firm for professional services as a result of some health care reform legislation.
Yes, ma'am. I'd like to introduce Nancy Power. She is from Deloitte Consulting Group. Lois Miller, prior to her leaving, began to receive quotes for professional services. We received those from Cowan Benefits, Deloitte, as well as Aon. When we reviewed what scope of services we had put out for quotes on, we brought in Deloitte because not only did they have the national recognition, they also had what we felt was the strong local presence and the most financial proposition that was best for the county. Nancy, as well as Greg Drennan from their organization, did a presentation to Mary Hickerson, Jeff Sandvik, Lisa, and Sonia Stevenson. And following that, we felt that that was the right vendor partner for healthcare reform for us. As you know, healthcare reform has a lot of different moving parts inside of it. There could be some taxable consequences and penalties to the county if we don't handle that appropriately. One of the reasons that we initially began looking was many of the different components of the reform require both a legal interpretation as well as an actuarial review. And we felt like that Deloitte, although they're not a legal service firm, they did have the expertise in all regards to assist us in that process. So tonight we're requesting approval to move forward with that arrangement with Deloitte. The fee associated with that is $60,900. For that, we will also receive a baseline review of both the 2009 and 2010 claims experience, and they will look at that baseline, and they will also, just as a check, determine that the 2011 premium levels were established appropriately. And from that baseline, they will begin to build out till 2020, I believe. So they will project forward, and as there are changes in the legislation or further, clarification is provided, any type of reporting that they had provided us that shows future impacts will be modified as part of their service. Since we began discussions with Deloitte, they have continued to answer general questions that I've had regarding healthcare reform. I have found them very knowledgeable in assisting when needed. And they provide us with weekly updates to the different changes and things that we need to be aware of as a insurance organization.
Madam Chairman, with not having the legal aspect of it, though, I mean, what does that do to us, or open us up, or does that we're going to have to seek further legal advice or whatever from somebody else if they are not equipped to do that?
What they will do is they will actually provide an evaluation of the legislation. As a disclaimer, because they are not technically a legal firm, and Nancy, correct me if I speak out of term, we can't promote them as such. However, they do have the expertise of interpreting federal guidelines and what is being set forth in the healthcare reform. They're involved in many organizations that are supported through legal organizations, the funding, the background for those type of environments where they receive ongoing information through conferences and things of that nature.
I guess you would look to your accountant to be very knowledgeable of IRS laws and regulations. Though they're not attorneys, they are interpreting the IRS regs.
Right, and that's why their affiliations that I mentioned are so important. They're mobile in the marketplace, and they're constantly gaining knowledge from different resources that enable them.
But just to be clear, though, I mean, this isn't covering us under any legal representation. If we have to have that for whatever reason in the future, then we'll have to do that extra compared to this.
That would be
If we
correct.
need to.
If we need to.
Yeah.
We'd likely
More
all
than
need to.
likely
but-
not, but
This may keep you married now.
that's right,
Yeah.
that's right.
What we're most concerned with initially is maintaining our grandfather status under the healthcare reform to forego the penalties that would be imposed should we lose it.
If you had to have an attorney, more than likely they go to somebody such as Sam for the expertise in this field. You know, so we're just.
And this covers us.
$60,000 won't go very far toward hiring
Right, right,
attorneys.
right. So this covers our whole umbrella for the county, though? right?
Correct.
Anybody that's in
Mhm.
the
Right.
How many years contract are we going to have with them? Or is it year to year if we need it in the future?
The current arrangement is through June of next year. It will provide us with the initial reporting that will give us, one of the interesting components about their proposal is that it gives us workforce planning. There will be changes to how we view part-time employees and the benefits that's associated with those individuals. So workforce planning is an important component for us to have. Once they establish the baseline, we will have, the way the contract is written, month-to-month consulting available to us through the end of June next year. If we would extend it beyond that, there would be additional fees.
With the talk of the health care reform bill being overturned, how would that affect our contract if it was overturned?
Currently, the fees associated are really to develop those things as we know them today. At the point that it would be overturned, there is a month-to-month ongoing fee basis that we would have to go back to the table and discuss with them about resolving. Because at that point, they would have no value and be providing no service to us.
Well, that's the thought that crossed my mind when this came up. Say 6 months into it, this was overturned. At that time, we get, say, compensation for the 6 months we didn't use. Is that basically what we're talking about?
We could discuss that. It's not currently in there. It's a 6-month agreement, the way it's written, because it does end in June of next year, and they wouldn't begin until the beginning of November.
Well, before you get my vote yes on this, you need to discuss that and tell me what the outcome's going to
Okay.
be.
Well, the converse to that, though, is the fact, if you do nothing now and it doesn't get overturned, then how many times have you
Well,
already
exactly.
faulted?
I think we need it, but I'm just saying,
Right.
I don't think we need to pay for something we're not going to use either.
The initial sum of the money is actually for the reporting that we know that we need beginning in January. The amount thereafter is a nominal amount that we pay on a monthly basis to them. Yeah. So really, in terms of overturning the contract, our risk factor involved to healthcare reform being overturned and what would our potential loss be is in regards to this contract is very minimal compared to our current exposure that we have by not having these expertise.
Well, we're talking about almost $61,000 for initially to start that. Is that plus a monthly fee, or is that included in that?
No, that's all inclusive, right. The report package itself, and you have that here, you can give the actual amount. The report package that we'll receive is actually where the bulk sum of the $60,000 is represented. That is the $29,400, and therefore it's $3,100 a month beginning in January.
Okay. Well, that gives me some figures to look at. Thank you.
And that's what I was basing my question off of. It says and, it doesn't say either or, basically.
Right, and I think that answers what Lisa had alluded to earlier. The reason that I mentioned that in there is because one of the conferences that I attended separate from Deloitte was actually being done by a group of attorneys that were talking about the different interpretations that you have to provide. And it was talking about CPI index and things of those nature. And the reason that I had pointed that out is because we currently inside the insurance department don't have either one of those expertise. And we are looking for Deloitte as part of our contract for them to utilize the resources they need to have the proper interpretation. So when they do their actuarial assumptions, it's based off of the right interpretation of the reform. Any attorney involvement that we have would be as part of any penalties would be what I foresee right now that were assessed to us.
Yeah.
Where are you gonna get these funds from?
It'll be paid from the insurance
Right.
fund.
Okay.
This was unanimous, the insurance committee, I believe, if I'm not mistaken. It's been a while since we saw this. I'll make a motion to approve.
Second.
Thank you, Commissioner Jordan, seconded by Commissioner Jernigan. I was going to quickly look that up. Commissioner Jordan, see. It was unanimous, yes. It was a unanimous vote in the
I
Insurance
think we
Committee.
can afford not to do this.
Any further discussion relative to the motion?
Just wanted to mention, she did answer my question, so I feel a little better about this vote. So.
Okay. Call the roll, please.
Commissioner Jernigan,
Yes.
Commissioner Jordan,
Yes.
Commissioner P,
Yes.
Commissioner Sandlin,
Aye.
Commissioner Schaefer,
Yes.
Commissioner Ely.
Yes. Mrs. Stinson also has another recommendation from the Insurance Committee, amending our health plan document to include molded foot orthotics when it is a necessary treatment.
Right. In 2006, there was a resolution signed by former Mayor Nancy Allen, and that was to allow for the treatment of extracorporeal shockwave therapy. As working up to that particular treatment, there are other conservative treatment processes that a physician will order, and one of those is custom fit orthotics. I believe it was an oversight at the time that it wasn't reviewed to determine that there was an exclusion for those under our plan. So what I'm recommending today is that we adopt the coverage of the custom fit orthotics as a more conservative treatment for this condition so that we can attempt to correct the situation at a lower cost prior to the EWS or ESWT being performed.
And that was a unanimous recommendation from the Insurance Committee also, gentlemen.
Move approved.
Now, second.
Commissioner Jernigan, seconded by Commissioner Schaefer. Discussion?
Was it not an extra cost in it, it's just put into our plan
Well,
as well? Or it is?
There would be a cost affiliated with the custom fit molded.
But now we're hopping over this.
Right.
Basically, we could do the cheaper treatment, but the
First.
insurance won't pay for it, so we're going to the more expensive. So this is
Right
actually
away.
giving us another measure in the middle for a limited number of people.
And yet, if the cost is 600, but if going through the networks, it could be, with the reductions we get, it can be definitely less than that.
Correct.
Any further discussion?
Is this for, it says custom molded foot orthotics. Is that only a prescription from a,
Orthopedist.
right?
Yes, so you
That's what
can't
I
buy
was-
those over the counter.
Okay.
Call the roll, please.
Commissioner Jernigan,
Yes.
Commissioner Jordan,
Yes.
Commissioner P,
Yes.
Commissioner Sandlin,
Aye.
Commissioner Schaefer,
Yes.
Commissioner Ely.
Yes. Okay, and your last recommendation from the Insurance Committee is a change in how to deal with missed appointments at the Care Here Clinic.
Correct. This was reviewed back in 2009, and it was proposed and passed that a $25 fee for missed appointments be applied and deducted through payroll. There was one missed appointment allowance per year per family. After that, $25 would be deducted for each missed appointment directly from payroll. At the time that the proposal was made, there were 916 no-show appointments based on 9 months' experience. I've looked at the 2010 experience for the first 7 months, and we were at 449. Projecting that out to a 9-month period, we would be at 577 missed appointments. We did a wellness survey, and we requested feedback on numerous things about our wellness initiatives, and one of those categories happened to be Care Here. And the availability of appointments was a issue that we received a large response from. So what we'd like to do is to correct the no-show activity that we have by putting a financial incentive in place for people to actually show up for the appointments they make, by changing the current policy that we have in place of $25 with one grace allowed to a $15 fee per occurrence beginning with the first occurrence. At the Blackman Clinic, as an example, which was one of the clinics that was noted as the lack of availability for appointments, we have a 50% no-show ratio at that particular clinic. The second clinic where we have the highest ratio of no-show is at our women's clinic that is located out in Walter Hill.
So there's not a charge affiliated with on a person that's missed or whatever.
There is to the county.
There is to the county.
Yes,
Whether they're there or not.
That's correct.
So how much are we charged?
The charge is about $40 on average.
And we're charging the people $25 after the first one.
After the first. So I can elaborate to give you a better financial picture of that.
Why not charge them what we're out if they don't make it? I mean, it's an expense to the county. We're offering this to the county employees. I mean, if you make an appointment, you don't go, then I mean, you're out that.
Okay, what about a situation like this, Commissioner? If you
There's a
don't-
million scenarios. I'm just saying if you don't make it.
People will use
Yeah.
it because she mentioned convenience. And some of these care here clinics only, like maybe one of them, like Blackman, only is the one that takes blood draws, I think, unless it's changed or something like that, that from the blood draw, and it's what, 7 to 7, before 8 o'clock in the morning is what it is. But that's the only one. And that's where 50% of them occurred. And I would imagine a lot of them were on the blood draw probably, and for some reason, the person didn't get up that day. The person ate breakfast, which means you can't get the blood drawn, so they don't go, and especially when they had
Well,
one
is there a
miss.
checks and balance on this deal? I mean, as far as these people actually made the appointment, and then, I mean, carrier's not.
Now, what happens is currently we receive on a monthly basis a report from Carrier that shows the no-show activity. We are manually tracking in our department individuals that have had their one grace, and then we forward on to payroll the list of those individuals that need to have that deduction. When I reviewed, to answer your question about why we aren't charging the $40, when I reviewed the meeting notes from the insurance committee that was held back in 2009, there was a lot of discussion regarding whether or not we should impose any type of penalty. What I was trying to achieve was just a heightened awareness and on top of that, a better recovery for the county. As an example, under the current scenario, looking at the first 6 months, we had potential collections of $14,000 had we charged from first appointment. Our actual collections were $1,200. Under the scenario that I've provided, we will recover about 40% of that $14,000.
And remind them right here, though.
Right. The mayor's asking me to remind that participants can cancel the appointment up to the time of the appointment. They can either do it through the 800 number or through the website. We've also done some things that are cost neutral to the county to try to improve utilization and to make appointments more readily available at central locations. Stewart's Creek was one of our lowest utilized clinics. So what we've done is we have taken off of their Tuesday morning schedule those 4 hours, and Dana was generous in letting us extend the hours over at the health department. So on a rotational basis, on one Friday we'll have 4 hours at the health department, and the next Friday we'll have an 8-hour period at the health department, and so forth, whereas currently we only have 4 hours every other Friday. So we think that by also centralizing here in the Murfreesboro area some additional hours, that we'll see better opportunity for individuals to have appointments.
If the bulk of the people missed their first one, then when it was going to cost them $25, they didn't miss the second one.
That's correct.
So the insurance committee backed up the thought of moving it to $15 on the first one. They're not going to do that. Then we could always up it later
That's
if it's still
correct.
being approved. But $15 is, money out of pocket. You'll make that phone call if it's going to be money out of pocket.
And they can call right up until the time of the appointment.
And they get an email 48 hours.
And then we won't be incurring the expense at that point. So it's a win-win.
And then it's easier to administer. They miss, they charge.
That's right. I mean, really the intent is to drive a behavioral change in our employee population. The other thing that we've done, just to elaborate a little bit further, is we have changed the way that they can schedule appointments online. Before, if you felt that your situation required 2 appointment times, you could go ahead and book those out. And what we found is that some people will book 2 appointments in a day so that they can decide which one works best for them and then cancel out one. So what we've done now is we just allow them to book 1 appointment, and it will shut the system down for their availability to book additional appointments. They can, however, like if they're having an HRE follow-up, they can call the 800 number and someone over the phone can go in and block them a second period of time.
Commissioner P.
Well, the mayor answered my first question about being able to call, so 2 minutes before your appointment, you could call and cancel and save us some money. The second one was, with all this information you got, do you have any information on how long patients have to wait when they have a 9 o'clock appointment? Are they seen at 9 o'clock? And in case that case is true that we're making them wait till 9:30, do we need to be paying them?
I do not have any statistics from Care here on that. I can tell you that out of our survey results that we received, wait time was not mentioned to us as an ongoing problem that we see.
I'd like to hear what anybody else has to say about it. The times that I have gone, which I have gone, they've always been very prompt, so I haven't seen that problem. But if we're talking about charging people that are not able to get there, one thing that infuriates me is to waste my time at a doctor's office when I have an appointment, and I don't want that happening here. And it sounds like you're trying to address that by opening more time, so I'm supportive of that, but I want to make sure we're not making people wait.
More than necessary, I understand.
Can we just do this for a year and then see how it goes?
Sure. That is what...
Adjust if we need to then. And that's, as long as everybody knows about it, skipping appointments, doesn't make any sense.
That's what we did last year. We tried the 25 with the 1 grace, and they're still abusing the 1 grace period, so we're kind of shutting that loophole to some extent.
Yeah. The bulk of our ability to impact the changes with that first appointment.
They understand it's costing the county, in turn it's costing them. All right, let's try it, see what happens. Got a motion?
No, we do not.
Motion to approve.
Thank you, Commissioner Sandlin.
Second.
Second by
The
Commissioner
motion
Jordan.
is to approve the $25 on the second miss, is that the way I understand it?
15 on the first.
15 on the first.
Okay.
Yeah.
It was 25 on the second up till now for the last year.
Yeah, so
And
this,
you're going to report to us how long people have to wait, right?
I will request to see if that data is recorded. I don't want to commit until I know if it's captured.
for clarification, did you specify that this would be a trial period for 1 year? Is that what you were saying, Commissioner Sandlin?
I'd prefer it,
Is that was that part of your motion?
It can
Is
be.
what I'm-
Sure, I'll put it in there.
Any further discussion? Call the roll, please.
Commissioner Jernigan.
Yes.
Commissioner Jordan.
Yes.
Commissioner P.
Yes.
Commissioner Sandlin.
Aye.
Commissioner Schaefer.
Yes.
Commissioner Ely.
Yes. Mrs. Stinson, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Ms. Garrett. Gentlemen, Section 3 of our notebooks, we have a request for approval of an endowment grant contract with the Tennessee Department of Health. This is for the expansion of the Smyrna Health Department, and you'll find that grant document in Section 3. Good evening, Ms. Garrett.
Good evening. I'm here tonight to present to you this grant that the Health Department has received for $699,937. We couldn't make it easy and make it $700,000 dollars. There's no matching funds or anything. It's just a straight grant from the state to expand our WIC, the Women, Infant, and Children program, in our Smyrna site. We've seen a huge increase at that end of the county, and it's very much needed.
Move to approve.
Second.
Commissioner Jernigan, seconded by Commissioner Sandlin. Discussion? Commissioner Schaefer.
Just a quick question.
Yes.
Is it going to require you to then, with more space, hire more people?
Well, that would be great if we do, but if we do, those funds would also come from the state. That would not be something we would ask the county for.
So it sounds like it's a win-win.
Yes,
What you're
sir.
saying.
It's awesome for our county. We're very excited about it.
So we can't come out of this, though, right?
That's correct. This is just for building funds. Yeah. But I can have a dream to maybe get some extra staff down the line somewhere.
Call the roll, please.
Commissioner Jernigan.
Yes.
Commissioner Jordan.
Yes.
Commissioner P.
Yes.
Commissioner Sandlin.
Aye.
Commissioner Schaefer,
Yes.
Commissioner Ely.
Yes. Thank you very much.
Thank you, guys.
Okay, gentlemen, let's begin with our general fund budget amendments, starting with a budget amendment from the county attorney's office. Mayor Burgess and/or Mrs. Nolan.
Well, I'll let Ms. Nolan go ahead because she knows the numbers a bit more precisely.
This is a
Beautiful chimes.
Let me make a little opening statement. She'll tell you exactly how we're accounting for this a little bit differently now. But we've been in, as you're well aware, we've been in a bit of an unusual period with legal activity over the last several months. I'm just going to point out a few of the things that have been taking place. We've created a county fire department. We've had to consolidate those 3 entities, which required some real estate transactions, et cetera. We've had a couple of issues with the election commission. We've developed an anti-litter ordinance that's taken a bit of time legally. We've had some issues with respect to the newly elected officials, the transition and some employment issues and some issues with the bonds. And of course, we've had the issue with the zoning requiring on the Islamic Center. So all of that has compounded the number of hours that have been expended in this regard. So that's what's prompted what we're having to request tonight.
And the way that we initially budgeted, this is in the county attorney's budget, that we're now paying $6,000 a month for retainer. So we had more than that in his salary. So when we budgeted, we just took that excess and put it in the legal services line. This was to pay for those things that were in excess of $6,000. And so 37.8 is what we put in there, and we've already spent $33,141. So this is the estimate.
So everything above the
50,000
$6,000 a month is going to come through
Comes
us.
a bill.
We'll be able to see it.
Mhm.
Yep.
That makes it a lot more transparent.
Yes.
Because we were spending a lot more than $6,000 a month before anyway.
Yes.
Right, so, you know, depending on what happens with the county and all the activity, I'm not guaranteed
We
this
don't
will
have any
last for
choice
this
but to
won't.
spend
I
this
guess I'm
money.
saying that don't look at this, that it may or may not last us the end
But
of the
if
year.
somebody files suit against us, we have no choice but to answer
We'll be
the suit.
back. So this is requested to increase it 50,000.
Move to approve.
Second.
Commissioner Jernigan, seconded by Commissioner Jordan. Discussion? Call the roll, please.
Commissioner Jernigan,
Yes.
Commissioner Jordan,
Yes.
Commissioner P,
Yes.
Commissioner Sandlin,
Aye.
Commissioner Schaefer,
Yes.
Commissioner Ely.
Yes. We have a budget transfer from the Election Commission. Mr. Walker,
How you doing? Thank you very much.
good evening.
How are y'all? You have the information in front of you, I believe, where we are taking some of the funds from several of the categories and moving some amounts, around $2,000, $1,500 here, into our payroll account to pay for the increased pay for our interim administrator through the, we believe it'll be through just for the next, since August 24th through probably into December, and then we should have the situation resolved. And we felt like that we could use that money. We were not going to use that money for elections. We had enough to take care of the August and the November election, and so we would not need any additional money, just moving some from those accounts to the payroll account.
So you're going to leave the person that's bumped up to the administrator at that pay grade until the position is refilled?
That's correct. It's
not just through the election cycle, because things ought to be a little quieter after the elections are over.
That's correct. She will function as the interim administrator until the new administrator is appointed.
And your timeline on filling that position, has that been established yet?
No, we wanted to focus on the elections, make sure that they are done correctly and efficiently, and as soon as the election is over, we will turn our attention to that. I might add that we are, on all the duties of the Election Commission, we are ahead of schedule. Everything is in place. We had, this morning, we had a examination of the machines at 9 a.m. and no candidate showed up to examine the machines, so we feel pretty good about that. We're there waiting on them, so we're confident we're going to have a great election and feel confident.
If we were to fill the position on or before January the 1st, it's likely that we would have to have some new money.
That's,
in other words,
right.
Budget.
Right,
So,
yes, sir.
so
You
I
won't
don't-
be paying Mr. Piniel after January 1st
After
anyway.
January 1st. So after
that
January
salary
1st
would be available for whoever's
That's
next.
right.
That's correct.
So that's when you would likely appoint the new administrator.
But even if there wasn't a new administrator, that salary would be available to go to
Yes,
this person.
that's what I'm saying, you're right.
Yes, sir.
Until then, we don't have the money available to appoint.
So moved, Madam Chairman.
Commissioner Sandlin, thank you. I have a motion,
Second.
I need a second. Thank you, Commissioner Schaefer. Discussion. Call the roll, please.
Commissioner Jernigan,
Yes.
Commissioner Jordan,
Yes.
Commissioner P,
No.
Commissioner Sandlin,
Aye.
Commissioner Schaefer,
Yes.
Commissioner Ely.
Yes. Motion carries. Mr. Walker, we do have the grant contract with the Tennessee Division of Elections
Yes, ma'am.
for the certified voting equipment.
That's correct. We have, to go back in history, the General Assembly passed a bill requiring that all counties will use optical scan equipment, and it was originally passed to be enforced by 2010. In its wisdom and with recommendations from all counties, that was pushed to 2012 to give us enough time. And primarily because there's not a machine on the market that is certified by the federal government for the latest standards, which is 2005 standards. So in this election, we have been given a grant to lease machines. We do not have enough machines, microvote machines, to handle this election, so we were able to lease them. They gave us the money to lease those machines, and we've been able to, we're ready to go. And then by the next time that the next cycle comes around in 2012, we will have brand new machines again, provided by the state of Tennessee.
How many machines is it?
It's 240, we're getting an additional 100 machines, I believe, but it's, all total, we have somewhere in the neighborhood of 242, somewhere in there, 244. And that's to cover early voting and the election day. We actually have 10 training machines. We now have, as you saw in the paper, over 146,000 registered voters.
Do the old machines have any value whatsoever?
The last old machines didn't have any value.
Well, I will tell you, these machines have a lot more value than the old Shoetronic machines. And when we reach that point, I'm sure that there are some states that we might be able to do something with them that are not, where their legislature has not passed a law requiring a paper ballot of some sort.
Well, it's in federal law, this is state law.
Well, this is, yeah, state law. They were anticipating that the federal is going to come out and require it, but the feds don't require it as of this. This was done a local push, a local statewide push by some advocacy groups feeling like we needed to have that piece of paper, and it is a paper ballot, but it's read by machine. And so the people that are wanting to go back to the Stone Age of paper ballots, it's still counted by machine. They just bubble it in. In fact, we use that same technology on our absentee ballots. If you receive an absentee ballot today, it's a Scantron where you bubble in your vote, and then we read it, and it's much more accurate than opening up all those hundreds and hundreds of ballots and physically counting them one by one with a counting board and double checking them. No Chads.
But
no, sir.
If the state doesn't receive money from the federal government, they're not likely to have it. So it's going to be some
Well, no,
money that we may have to fund.
There's $32 million of HAVA money left over from the original grant, which I have to commend Brooke, the former coordinator of elections, Brooke Thompson, for keeping that money. And that money is going to be used to purchase machines for 2012.
But in addition to that, you have to buy paper ballots.
Oh,
and,
yeah.
and there are substantial costs associated with that.
30 cents apiece. And we have to have 105% of the registered voters.
So you're at $50,000 a year just on ballots.
Yeah, you're right, Mr. Mayor. I had not mentioned that, but that's...
And I guess they have to be maintained or stored.
Oh, yes.
All that, that's
That's another addition onto the...
150, 60,000 pieces of paper to keep
archives.
up with.
I could go on for a long time about this whole situation, but it's senseless to even talk about it.
Out of our hands as far as
That's
that
correct. We just have to respond to the legislation.
No match?
Said the
No.
federal looking at changing
No match.
all state phones to that time the presidential election possible.
Motion to approve. Brad.
Second.
Commissioner Jordan, seconded by Commissioner Sand. Any further discussion relative to this grant?
10% the vote in the local
Call the roll,
election.
please.
Commissioner Jernigan?
Yes.
Commissioner Jordan?
Yes.
Commissioner Pugh?
Yes.
Commissioner Sandlin?
Aye.
Commissioner Schaefer?
Yes.
Commissioner Ely?
Yes.
Thank
Mr.
you.
Walker, thank you very much. We have a change in the way we are going to operate the Register of Deeds and the county clerk offices, a move from excess fees operation to fees in lieu of salary. I'm going to ask, please, if our Register of Deeds, Ms. Dahlborn would come forward, and is Ms. Crowell here?
I believe she had a wedding to do tonight.
Oh, a wedding, okay.
Okay.
Because we're going to, we need two separate motions, and we'll do this separately, but it's the same explanation, really, just with different numbers.
It's the same theory on both of these offices. In the past, and this is how a lot of the offices across the state of Tennessee, is that the monies, the fees that these offices collect, their county fees, that they typically hold on, they pay their payroll, and then quarterly they turn any excess over about 2 or 3 months. They can't hold more than 3 months worth of operations on hand at any point in time. If you remember those excess fees we were talking about when the offices closed this last time, that all excess fees were turned in. So any accumulation that the prior office holders had has been turned over to the county. So this was an opportunity to talk to Ms. Dahlborn and then to Lisa Crow about another way to handle this. And that is that they turn their fees over monthly, just like what they did at the end of August. They closed everything out and turned over to the county, that they would turn these excess fees in total over at the end of every month. So, why would they even want to do that? Well, one of the main reasons for both of them is for transparency for the cost of their offices. Many years ago, I'm talking in the 80s, Department of Audit audited the fee offices separately. So you could go to those audits and find history of how much does the office in total cost to operate. They moved from that to including the cost of operations of the fee offices into the comprehensive audited financial report. Now, I'm not quite sure what year it was, but then they've gone from that to not reporting that. So even in this last election, if Heather had come up to me and said, how much is the cost of that office, it would have been a lot of digging and pulling out of for us to say this is how much the cost is, because those costs are not recorded. The salary costs are not recorded. If you remember, if you look at their budgets, it's everything but salaries is what's in their individual budgets. So this methodology is that, like I said, they'll turn over the fees in total monthly, and then the salaries are budgeted within the county's budget. It builds a history, and as Ms. Crowell asked, what if I'm not here? And I said, well, this really sets up for the rest of forever. It doesn't regardless of whether I'm in this office or they're in that office, accounting for it this way, it will be recorded.
Needs to be monthly. Yeah.
Well, I mean, it's a little, it's changed. It's still, as the mayor pointed out, it's the county's money. It's the county fees, and it's the county money. It's just a different way of doing it instead of the officials holding on to 3 months worth of cash. And so you say, why would they do that? Well, you think about what's happened even in her office. If you remember with last year, the estimate for excess fees was way down. I mean, so the fee holders would hold back 3 months to ensure that they had funds available to pay their payroll. Okay?
So if she's short 1 month, she could be up for asking for funds to
well,
go to the payroll.
Well, I mean,
it's got to be both ways.
Right. By putting it on here, and it's almost like this is what we can be watching, and then she's going to watch, and she'll have the data
It's something because we're moving to all electronic bookkeeping in our office today. We actually completed that process, thank goodness. And in doing so, going to a monthly accounting will be much, much simpler. We zero out at the end of each month. We turn over all the excess fees at the end of each month. We start afresh beginning each month. It'll be very helpful, and again, I think also in the case of our office with the fluctuations of the market, real estate market, our fees will fluctuate. It's just a way for, I believe, the county to have a better idea of what to expect from our office and how to budget more wisely because of that.
I agree.
I think we should commend Ms. Dahlborn and Ms. Crowell both for being willing to put a more accountable system into place. I mean, it's going to be very beneficial.
Absolutely.
Now, I don't want y'all to get shocked because this amendment is only for 9 months. So when we come into the budget process, when we're comparing what she's asking for next year compared to this year, you're going to be comparing 12 months to 9 months.
So move, Madam Chairman.
I'll second it.
Okay, we have a motion from Commissioner Sandlin, seconded by Commissioner Schaefer. Commissioner Jernigan.
Every 4 years when you have an election, and you official change that back, they want to.
This is a step, and we've talked to both of them through our auditors. Once this decision is made, it will always be done this way. It won't be going back. And that's.
I think we need to check that because I've been to a statewide meeting and that was brought up. And I think you better check that out.
Well, I mean, and we did. I mean, that was one of the things that, I think for Heather.
That was a part of my decision process. One of the first questions I asked the auditors, actually, because it's not just me, it's whoever follows me in this office. It's a big decision to make.
Can you get our attorney to check, see if that's correct?
In either way, though, if you consider currently, it would change. It could change also each and every time.
I just want a clarification on a professional lawyer.
Okay, Commissioner Schaefer.
That was the one question I had, was could it be changed back? The other is, how does this affect salary? Say that if, in the fee offices, say when budget time comes, say there's not a raise in the county, but say the fee, her office, she decides she wants to give her employees a 3% raise, but the commission approves the budget.
It's sort of like it's already been. I mean, they have agreed with us, even during the previous budgeting periods, that they would hold their salaries if we held our salaries. So it's been just a working arrangement.
Okay, well, it sounds great to me. I mean, I'm 100% for it, but I look at devil's advocate.
Once upon a...
well, there's one office that didn't.
Well,
trustee.
In the past, yeah.
Well, since we went to the new pay plan, they've held with us since 2005, and I think that's one step in this county it's had above all the other ones in the state, is that they are part of our plan. It's not that the fee offices had a separate plan, which makes it easier for this transition to happen. Because if I were, as I explained to Heather, if I were a fee office and that was not the arrangement, then I might have even more hesitancy to go to this arrangement.
I'm not saying that they wouldn't or shouldn't. I think it's a good thing that they have. but if they did say, hey, we want to give an increase, and the commission has to vote on it, and we're voting no for the county general employees, and yet asked to vote yes on that, and the commission doesn't vote yes on that, would that stop her from being able to give those raises?
It does, but it does not take away her ability to sue.
Right.
She retains the ability to sue.
For the most part, the offices, since the development of the HR department, have followed the recommendations for the step increases that the HR department puts in place for their employee raises. Countywide, we follow pretty much the county policy.
Well, I know a couple of years ago it was touchy because when a raise did come out with the commission, and that's why. But my other question, and this is just because we've got the Register of Deeds and we've got the county clerk. There's a couple more fee offices. They're still on their old system?
Yeah.
Now,
and just to bring up, you've already got one fee office that is this way. Chancery is a fee office, and some of y'all I know were on, I think you were, when they moved from a excess fee situation into our budget, and they turn over their fees monthly. Now, in that situation, one of the reasons why they did that is because they were not generating enough fees to cover their salaries. That was the prompt for them to do that. Now, they have so far in the past had sufficient fees. That's not the reason why they're doing this. The reason for both of them is greater transparency of the cost of their operations. Because if you looked right now, you could not, as a citizen, find what the cost of her operations is. It's not in the budget, and it's not in the audit.
We're getting on track.
We're getting on track.
I got to ask another one now because I'd forgotten completely about the chancery. If it's a constitutional office, it's not elected though, right?
It's appointed.
Appointed, okay. All right. Well, what about, you didn't mention the circuit court clerk's office and the trustee. Yeah, so they go the same way they've been going?
It'd be yes, until they decide.
Okay.
This is about all the bite we could take off the apple this year.
Okay.
The others we'll work on.
And it may not be appropriate for all other offices.
Yeah.
There's certain differences between the offices, I believe, and those individuals would have that decision to make for themselves.
Well, I want to say, I applaud you to making
thank
this
you.
attempt, and Ms. Crowell also, because I think it puts us more on the same page in this county instead of being separate.
Do you need to remind us of the number?
Oh, you mean to tell you the numbers? I guess that's when you do that. For the register, and you can see that I'm doing the offset because the theory behind this amendment is previous to the election, the prior office holders already gave us estimate of what they thought the excess was. So with their current staff, they felt like they would have sufficient funds to pay that. So your offsetting revenue would be fees in lieu of salary. That's just recognizing what they assumed that was going to happen. And then these are the same officials, the same positions and at the salary for 9 months. So for the Register of Deeds, it's an increase of $676,397 for fees in lieu of salary spread amongst all the salary. This would be her salary and the deputies and the part-time. And also travel, we're bringing travel in here also that had been paid out of fees. So $676,397 for Register of Deeds, and for the county clerk, $1 million.
Do we need to do these separately?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so let's do Register of Deeds then. And we do have a motion and a second on Register of Deeds. Any further discussion? Call the roll, please.
Commissioner Jernigan?
Yes.
Commissioner Jordan?
Yes.
Commissioner P?
Yes.
Commissioner Sandlin?
Aye.
Commissioner Schaefer?
Yes.
Commissioner Ely?
Yes. And now the Finance Director will present the county clerk's numbers, and then the Chair will entertain a motion for this.
$1,536,639.
Commissioner Sandlin, thank you. Seconded by
Second.
Commissioner Schaefer.
Yes.
Discussion? Call the roll, please.
Commissioner Jernigan,
Yes.
Commissioner Jordan,
Yes.
Commissioner P,
Yes.
Commissioner Sandlin,
Aye.
Commissioner Schaefer.
Yes.
Commissioner Ely.
Yes. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks. Drug court. Ms. Snyder.
I hope you're all.
Ms. Snyder, we need to deal with budget revenues and appropriations for an ARA JAG grant, right?
And all we're doing is renaming some money that was spent last year, but was taken out of this year's budget. It needs to go back in last year's budget.
Well, yes, it's monies that, the revenue was last year, and the expenditure was somewhat last year and this year. The revenue came in this year, and we're paying it out of this year.
3,600.
36.
So moved.
Second.
Commissioner Sandlin, seconded by Commissioner P. Call the roll, please.
Commissioner Jernigan,
Yes.
Commissioner Jordan,
Yes.
Commissioner P,
Yes.
Commissioner Sandlin,
Aye.
Commissioner Schaefer,
Yes.
Commissioner Ely.
Yes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I didn't see either of the judges here.
We told them not to.
Oh, did you talk to them? Okay. From general sessions?
Do you?
Don't show.
Yeah.
No, we told them not to, because really.
Hear ye, you don't have to show it.
Do you remember the contract that the commission approved, and it had a fee schedule, and these are for psychological evaluations for misdemeanors that the judges would have ordered. Previously, the state paid for that. Then the state said, we're not paying that anymore. Well, in last year, in 9-10 would have been the first year, we didn't, it was like during that year that first contract came through, which we had no expenses. We come into this year, I think we had to redo that contract again. In August or September, I can't remember when this bill came in, we had a bill submitted from the state of $40,500. Of course, we didn't budget anything because we had no idea what the cost in total would be. You know, with that $450 an hour charge, $450 per day charge, wasn't for sure how that equated and how often that would be utilized.
Oh, that's per hour, you're right.
Was it per hour? It was?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, okay.
That's correct.
I wish it was per
Should have stayed
day.
in school.
I should have.
I mean, I was just.
Okay, 450 per hour. So anyway, last year's billings with 40,500, we're estimating, now everybody knows how to charge and the bills are coming. And I spoke with the State Department to say, just give me an estimate. What do you think this is going to happen for us? And so that's where the $56,500 comes from. So the $97,000, just know when we are requesting funding for the evaluation and testing and requesting it to come out of fund balance, that part of that is to pay for last fiscal year's expenses of $40,500.
So it leaves us $16,000.
No.
No,
This is
$56,500 as an estimate for this fiscal year.
For the balance of the year. For this fiscal year, yeah.
But we're going to get control over this at all?
No.
No. The judges are doing their best. They're concerned about
They
this.
are
not
aware
to-
of how much it's
Very much
cost.
aware of this.
And we have them sign off on the bills as they come in, and because we wanted to make sure
They've
that they
signed
did
this right
order
here,
it.
So they're,
But I mean, if they send 4 people a month up there or wherever to get evaluated, we're just stuck paying the bill
absolutely.
regardless.
Yes, sir.
$450 an hour.
The surprising thing for me
That's
is
crazy.
it's several days when an individual goes. It's not a so many hours this day. It's they're gone for several days.
Well, it's like this statement was mentioned a minute ago. We have the right to sue the state, just like a constitutional office can sue the county.
Well, this is if you remember, we
have
into the
general
contract.
session. The state still has circuit court, right?
It's supposed to be a break. Yeah, it's supposed to be a deal.
15 hours a deal?
Yeah, this is a reduced
This was the reduced
contract
rate.
costs. supposedly.
Hey,
You.
Yes.
Alex Rodriguez would like to get this salary. But
He's saying the real cost.
Who is it? Commissioner Schaefer?
this is for Ms. Eldon. We're stuck with general sessions, and the state still kept the circuit, anybody from the circuit court that was required to get a mental evaluation.
There's been no changes in circuit court. This is only for misdemeanors coming out of general session.
I don't like it, but I've got to approve it, so a motion to approve.
Thank you, Commissioner Sandlin.
I'll second.
Seconded, Commissioner P.
Yes.
Yes. And if you remember, this is Commissioner Schaefer, this is your favorite term.
I already elected for her, run her answer machine.
Any further discussion?
You ain't got no choice.
Call the roll, please.
Commissioner Jernigan. Commissioner Jordan.
No, I do have a choice, I vote.
Commissioner P.
Well, I can be the same way, and we all vote no. We're still going to have to pay it, but I'll say yes.
Commissioner Sandlin.
Aye.
Commissioner Schaefer.
Good, that means I can leave it up to Miss Ely, and I can say no also.
Commissioner Ely.
Yes. And would anyone like to change their vote?
Do so now.
Yes. Okay, gentlemen, let's move on to domestic violence. And Ms. Bone you talked to her, right?
Right.
So she's not here either.
This is the second year of the R grant for the domestic violence, and we're using this, We're using the original R grant to fund some part-time help. In previous years, last year, and for their other domestic violence grant, the state has allowed us to use their office space as a match, as an in-kind match. For this fiscal year, they said they're not allowing in-kind match anymore, that we have to match the grant with cash. So she has funds that they receive through the courts that is for victims' assistance. So we're recommending to show $10,000 coming from that to help fund additional part-time help. That will be the county's match, the 25% match for the 75%
So this
from
is
the
no new
R.
money, this is just accounting.
Yeah, we have the money in that account.
We have money to pay for this.
Motion to approve.
Commissioner Jordan, seconded by Commissioner P. Discussion?
I'm just a little bit confused on that in-kind match. We can't do
We
it
can't
anymore.
use it anymore. The grants are 75-25, and we were not putting out cash. We were saying, okay, we're using
Part of
office
this is our
space.
25.
But this is money that we're using anyway, we're just accounting for it differently.
We're now saying, well, it's got to be used for her program anyway.
Yeah.
So we're saying, okay, we're using this cash to match.
But it's out of the 25%, what I'm saying.
It's the 25%.
It is the 25% match.
We
This is how
gonna
we
do
should-
give office space for nothing.
Yes.
Basically, yes.
No, they got to meet out in the street.
Commissioner
Common.
Schaefer?
Yes, just a quick one. To provide for technical support assistance. Can you explain exactly?
She's-
Is computer
she's-
work? Or?
Yes. It's for hiring some part-time and a computer that she's going to be doing data entry. That's her technical, however she worded that, technical support assistance.
Any further discussion? Call the roll, please.
Commissioner Jernigan. Commissioner Jordan.
Yes.
Commissioner P.
Yes.
Commissioner Sandlin.
Aye.
Commissioner Schaefer.
Yes.
Commissioner Ely.
Yes. We have 4 budget amendments from the Sheriff's Department. Good evening, gentlemen.
Good evening.
Sheriff Arnold and Mr. Russell, right?
Yep.
Mr. Russell, you will begin with the contributions. In fact, you have 2 different contributions, but the one for your August donations.
Yeah, there was, of course, this was prior to us taking office, but there was a donation of $1,354 from the 819 Explorer Car Show, and $1,000 from Walmart was donated for our 9/11 event, and we're wanting to get those monies donated back into our $399 account.
So moved.
You could do the
We can
second
take both
one.
of
Do you know,
them.
and
Yeah,
gentlemen,
that's
if you would not mind, we might just
You
do
might
all
do both
four
of
of
them.
them
You
as
may do all
one
four,
vote,
yeah.
unless
Okay,
you.
well, I'll keep going, no problem.
Yes.
Then there was a request, I believe, to move 15,000 out of communication into data processing services.
Okay, and on the next page,
And on the next page was another contribution of $25 that came in during the 9/11 event. We're requesting those funds to be sent back to us as well. And then we recycled some materials that we found on our back lot, and those funds as well.
okay, thank you, Commissioner Sandlin.
I'll second it, but I do have a question about the communications account. Why do you want to take money out of that account when we were presented the other day that we're really lacking in funds to buy new consoles?
To be perfectly honest, this was something that was done. It's got Truman's signature on it. Not really sure.
I think more along the lines, it could be that they were wanting to pay for the Verizon extra BlackBerries because they're moving a lot of the BlackBerries over. And so I don't know why they're putting it in the data processing account. I'm not really too sure about that. Didn't have a lot of definition on that one, so.
BlackBerry could be either one.
Well, I know, yeah, it could go either way, yeah. And so that's where I think it's coming from, unless you know otherwise.
Actually, I don't know why.
Okay.
I mean, you know, the possibility is
Yeah.
for them to go back and look and see, do they really need it?
Telephone bills here, right?
The communication normally is a telephone
It's not
bills.
equipment, it's actually.
It's still just money moving from one line item to another within their own budget. It's no new money at all.
It's no new money.
No new
From
money.
there to there, so it's not a major thing.
And they may need to come back later after they've lived through some of the months and
Yeah.
they may have to.
Maybe move
Maybe
it back,
back.
yes, who knows, yes.
Any further discussion? Call the roll, please.
Commissioner Jernigan?
Yes.
Commissioner Jordan?
Yes.
Commissioner P?
Yes.
Commissioner Sandlin?
Aye.
Commissioner Schaefer?
Yes.
Commissioner Elam?
Yes. Gentlemen, have anything else?
Nothing else right now.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for your time, gentlemen.
Information technology. Mr. Robertson? Shall we skip that and come back in a few minutes, perhaps?
I think we can go ahead with
Can we
that.
do this?
What is this in
The
here
grant
for?
application,
That is the,
the Office of the Courts.
okay, wait a minute.
Grant.
This, hold on. Let me, this is the one.
Self-represented
Yes, this is,
leg-
yeah,
make
this is a
videos.
grant. This is
The video.
This is the
Yes.
videos that, actually, to be truthful, this is a request to apply for a grant that we've applied for because of the date.
Oh, okay.
It was an in-between time, and the purpose of this grant, and this is through Judge Ash's office, along with MTSU, Mass Communications Department, with Mr. Robertson's office sort of being the conduit for this. And the whole purpose behind this grant, there are people that try to do their own, what do you call it?
Represent themselves in court.
Yes. And so the whole purpose behind this grant is to make some videos for those people to watch and to be prepared for when they come in to the courts.
And this is initiated by Judge Ash. He's the one that's prepared this request, and he's the one that's coordinating this, and let's talk to the AOC about this type of application. So he's worked this out with MTSU's, some of those students out there, and Brian will assist in coordinating that, just as Lisa said. And
The total estimate is $24,770, and a part of that is to help pay for some of Brian's part-time people and then some of the students to pay for their services to put on these
Be plain and
videos.
simple, what's this costing us?
Nothing.
nothing, because even Brian's people's times will be reimbursed to some degree.
We haven't been awarded.
No.
This
If
is,
we were, and although they have had to apply for this due to a timing issue, if we were to say no, they could always withdraw their application.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
And so there's been no.
Before we even sign it, yeah.
All the rules broken.
This is a one-time thing that they'll get a video of what they do.
And
the
what-
hand of this person is wanting to represent themselves. I
Well, what they
understand that.
envision that it's going to be out there on the web that anybody can pull it down. And
It's going to be on YouTube.
Yeah, YouTube. And hopefully it'll be a quality to where that it could be used statewide, not just for Rutherford County.
Move to approve.
Commissioner Jernigan, thank you.
Second.
Seconded by Commissioner P. Any further discussion?
It ain't costing us nothing.
Call the roll, please.
Commissioner Jernigan,
Yeah.
Commissioner Jordan,
Yes.
Commissioner P,
Yes.
Commissioner Sandlin,
Aye.
Commissioner Schaefer.
Yes.
Commissioner Elam.
Yes. And then there also is a budget amendment for video recorders to be used in the judicial building, correctional work center, juvenile detention, and juvenile court security areas.
In all of those areas, we've determined, after we've used some of these spaces, that we really need some additional cameras there for proper security. This has been especially pointed out in all of those areas, but in the juvenile court area in particular. So this is what we've determined that it's going to take to put in some new cameras, pull the conduit and the cable, and actually make these centers better secured and provide safety for all of the occupants.
And the funds that we're using to pay for it, there's litigation tax that is to be used for court security, and we had funds left over from last year. So that's the $20,000 is for the court security, and then the $85,000 would come from the litigation tax for improvements to jails, workhouse, and courthouse. So it's
Has to go to something along these lines.
It's gotta go to that.
It has to be. It's restricted, and it's how we can use it.
Move to approve.
Second.
Commissioner Jernigan, seconded by Commissioner P. Call the roll, please.
Commissioner Jernigan.
Yes.
Commissioner Jordan,
Yes.
Commissioner P,
Yes.
Commissioner Sandlin,
Aye.
Commissioner Schaefer,
Yes.
Commissioner Elam.
Yes. Okay, gentlemen, please turn to section 6 in your notebooks, and we will begin with the general purpose school fund budget amendment. Mr. Sandvig, Director Gill, Mr. Clardy. Thank you, gentlemen, for joining us. Mr. Sandvig, I think you have one that you're just going to give us for information, and then your budget amendment, or
No, you go
Director
ahead,
Gill.
No, I'll take the next one. He can have it.
Okay.
Give me a piece of paper. Give me that.
Okay, the first is the notification of the additional energy efficient school grant. This is for information only, right?
Yes, ma'am. Rutherford County Schools have been awarded $47,310 toward the installation of the light sensors at Oakland and Whitworth Buchanan Middle Schools. And the total project will cost about $149,400. These schools weren't included in the initial sensor project since they weren't complete at the time. And the balance of the project, $102,090, we will be able to cover through change orders to our 2 construction projects.
Okay, and then your budget amendment.
But in the future, all our new construction will include these sensors.
Yes, correct.
Because we just barely missed when these were under construction last bid before we came up with this. We won't be going back retrofitting any more new schools.
Yes. I thought we had said that when these originally came in a couple of years ago.
That was with the light fixtures, I believe, but we've moved from light fixtures to light sensors now.
Well, actually, yeah, you got all the new schools have the updated lighting and also the sensors both, yeah. But to answer his, I mean, I think there was some confusion, Commissioner Pegg.
Our budget amendment is for the BEP ERA funds, and this amendment moves $6,725,500 from account 46511 Basic Education Program to account 46512 BEP ERA. And the state is using part of its ERA funds, the state fiscal stimulus funds, to fund part of the BEP and other programs. This was a late change from the state. When we brought the budget forward in June, the last we had heard from the state, it would still be last year's number, which is the $6.5 million that's already in place. I talked to Wesley Robertson, who's the director of local education support, whatever it's been renamed, and he assured me that the intent was to fully fund the BEP for the next year. But our recommended motion is to amend $6,725,500 from account 46511 Basic Education Program to account 46512 BEP ERA as presented.
Motion approved.
Second.
Commissioner Jordan, seconded by Commissioner Sandlin. Discussion? Commissioner Schaefer.
Your friend at the state, did he give you any idea where they're going to come up with $6.75 million next
Well,
year?
actually, the number has dropped off. We did get notification later on in this. Some states spent all of their stimulus money last year. Tennessee did not. So in this last batch, Rutherford County did get
Probably need to call attention to it.
for our 2011-2012 budget.
Well, I got to ask the next obvious question then. How much of this 7.4 million then? It's nice to just get 700,000 just like that, isn't it? But anyhow, what non-reoccurring items is this going into?
Oh, this is not going into, this is going into recurring costs. This.
Okay.
This is the state's money. This
Yes.
is not our money.
Okay. Yeah, but
so they can use it for any purpose they so choose.
But if it's not around next year,
That's their problem. They'll have to deal with it.
yeah, we've seen that a lot. We just got through with $97,000 of their problem. I'm sorry, but okay.
I'd rather they use it instead of asking for some.
Okay, we do have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Call the roll, please.
Commissioner Jernigan.
Yes.
Commissioner Jordan.
Yes.
Commissioner P.
Yes.
Commissioner Sandlin.
Aye.
Commissioner Schaefer.
Yes.
Commissioner Ely.
Yes.
Still better to have it than not.
Is this for Mr. Sandy? Does his report?
No, this is now this thing.
You see what to do the next
No,
one?
I'll go.
You're going to do that. Okay. Our next is your recommendation authorizing funding for the design of Stewart's Creek High School. You have some other information to give? Okay.
Let's hold this, Jeff, just for a second, okay? Let's work off this sheet. You got these here. Okay. See that everybody gets one. First, I want to kind of define the need. Okay.
I think you want a different sheet going around Director Gill. I think Director Gill wants us to work off this.
This sheet. It says Smyrna High, Laverne High at the top of the sheet.
we got that.
Okay.
What about the other sheet you stopped
Well,
here?
just hold
Just
that,
hold on
if
to
you
it.
would, Commissioner, and then
Jeff,
we'll
there's two extra.
we'll go to that as a follow-up. I think it's kind of connected to what Ms. Nolan's going to talk about anyway. First, I just want to make a case for why we have to have a high school. I think the school board certainly need to realize we're in dire straits with respect to having seats for high school kids. Currently, Laverne and Smyrna and Riverdale each are using multiple portables. Laverne right now, Laverne High School uses 8 portables. They have 7 roaming teachers. They have rooms have been converted to classrooms, 6 of those. And as I said, 8 portables. Smyrna High uses 6 portables. They don't have any roaming teachers yet, but they're borderline doing that. Even though we added 400 seats on Blackman, they now have 3 science labs that aren't in labs, and they have ISS in storage. Next year, they will more than likely be requesting portables too. Riverdale has 20-something portables. The board decided that the best location for a new high school would be Stewart's Creek. because it was more of a midpoint between all 4 schools, and we will be able to draw kids from each school. Now, just so you know how critical our situation is becoming, by the year 2013, I'm going to give you hard numbers. No speculation, no exaggeration, just pure numbers. Currently, 6th through 9th graders in the Smyrna-Laverne zone, those 6th through 9th graders in the year 2013, assuming they're all promoted, would be 9th through 12th graders. There are 1,062 9th graders. There are 3,590 6th through 8th graders that are zoned for either Smyrna or Laverne. The total number of those students is 4,652 students. Now, if we promoted all those, that would mean if they were proportionately distributed between the 2 schools, there would be 2,326 kids going to each of those 2 schools. Now, that's assuming there's no growth, which hasn't been a luxury that we've been able to deal with over time. Matter of fact, Mr. Savig and I were just discussing the least amount of growth we've had has been 1.9%, and the highest has been about 5.5%. So I think you can bank on 3% growth across the county, and in particular the north end of the county. If we have 3% growth at each of those 2 schools, by the year 2013, you would have 2,542 kids at each school. Those schools were built in 1987 for 800 students. There have been 3 additions that have brought their capacity to pretty close to 2,000 students, although Smyrna's enrollment right now is, Smyrna High's enrollment is 1987, Laverne's 2086. And you can see even with those numbers, they have 8 and 6 portables respectively, and also there are 7 or 8 teachers roaming at Laverne High School. All that said, that if the numbers at those 2 schools reach that point and there's not a school to accommodate those kids, we'll need how many portables, Gary, at those 2 schools? Matter of fact, we've got a diagram. If you turn to I think it's page 4, there's a aerial photo of the 2 schools, and we've located where those portables would go. And Mr. Morton, was that based on 3% growth?
Yes, sir.
Okay, I thought so. Each of those represents a double portable. And you'd see in 2010 we brought on a double. 2011 we would need 6 more outdoor classrooms. 2012 8 more. In 2013 10 more, based on 3% growth. Smyrna High shows fewer because currently more of the kids are zoned for Laverne, but assuming that we didn't get a high school, I would assume that the board would go back and rezone some of those kids out of Laverne back to Smyrna.
These maps show double portables, but it shows in the high school setting, double portables don't usually work because you have larger class sizes and you can't fit 60 kids in a double portable, so you have to use 2 trailers for each one.
Yeah.
So you're basically in
that. Actually, it was a very good point. I appreciate you bringing that up. The state BEP, Basic Education Program, allows for 20-to-1 K through 3 pupil teacher ratio, 20-to-1 K3, 25-to-1 6-8, and then 30. Actually, you can exceed 30 in high schools, and you simply can't put 30 high schools in a portable. It just won't work. It's not
and a half a double,
right.
And a half.
So in retrospect, we would be better served if we had single portables. The dilemma there is it takes up even more room in a school that's virtually landlocked. Now, also part of our dilemma is that we don't have any portables to move. You know, we've been good stewards of the taxpayers' money with respect to portables and not purchased any over the last few years. We've moved them around to accommodate each and everyone's needs as best possible. But thanks to the commission approving our various projects and good work by our maintenance folks, we've got, we've gotten by, but we currently, I might add, still use 130 130 portables in Rutherford County schools. I mean, if there were 20 in each of those schools, you're talking, what, close to 3,000 kids that are sitting outside. But I think if you see that, and you see where you're having to locate them at Laverne, I mean, they're stuck in the portable, in the parking lots, and there's no other place to put them. And also, in an era where we're held to the highest standards of accountability, it just doesn't work. And as I said, Health and Ed, at high schools, we're what's called departmentalized, which means kid has 7 classes. First period, he might be in a portable. Second period, he might be inside. Third period, he could be back out in the portable. Fourth period, so on and so forth. And that holds true for Smyrna, too. So, not to mention the safety hazards that come along with portables. I think it'd be a nightmare to try to monitor that many portables in a school setting.
And we're not putting plumbing in these because...
No, they have no plumbing, they, no toiletry, no water, none of that stuff. And to be honest with you, I think we did a calculation based on these numbers. We need about at minimum $2.5 million worth of portables by 2013 to accommodate this kind of enrollment. And I think the mayor and Ms. Nolan, I think we're kind of in sync with respect to the numbers. Hope so. But as we said last time, the mayor and I don't always agree on numbers. But I think we're pretty close on this one, and I don't think there's any question there. We're going to be dealing with a nightmare if we don't get to school. Now, also, I'd pledge well, we can go over Blackman real quick. Blackman's current 6th through 9th grade enrollment, they would have 2,307 students by the year 2013 if we promoted them all in the 9th through 12th grade. If you take 3% growth, they would have 2,521 kids. It's entirely possible based on 3% growth. By the year 2013, we could have 1,400 high schoolers stuck outside portables. Siegel High in Oakland, I think they can get by. Oakland, we certainly have some room. Siegel right now employs or uses portables as well. I think 3 or 4 or 5 or 6. But as I said, we're in dire straits with respect to needing a school. If you flip to page 3, it will reflect why we're proposing Stewart's Creek come on board. It also show you the enrollment. Is this factoring growth, Mr. Morton? No, sir. I didn't think so. Okay. Without growth in the year 2013, based on the current 6th through 9th graders and based on Stewart's Creek opening up, we'd have 1,934 at Laverne, 1877 at Smyrna. Stewart's Creek would open at 1739. Blackman would have 1777 with a little room for growth, and Riverdale would have about 1,900. And it's feasible we could shuffle a few more back into Blackman from Riverdale. So even with that school, we're filling them up fast. Now,
how many does that leave at Central?
Central Magnet?
Yeah, high school. Is it gonna...
9th and 10th grade are pretty much full, but obviously you just roll the kids up, somewhere in the vicinity of 1,000. Yeah, not all high schools.
Like 600 high schools,
600 high schools.
I believe that's right. Yeah, 150th grade, it'd be 600, and then you got your 6th through 8th. It'd be somewhere 1,000 to 1,100.
Well, I was meaning really the high school.
Sure, yeah. Now, let's see if there's anything else. And you know what? I've talked to Mr. Ash, Mr. Rates, and Ms. Vick, all 3 of whom are principals at those schools. And, they've done a lot of creative stuff, but I think Mr. Ash in particular is at a point where he can't do much else. He's got roving teachers. First of all, it's not fair to the teacher. I know it's part of the culture here because we've had to build so many schools so fast. but it doesn't promote the best learning environment. Mr. Rakes next year will have roving teachers, as will Ms. Vick. We don't want to rush out and buy a bunch of portables, and we're committed to doing our very best not to buy, to buy as few as possible, hopefully none, to try to make it to 2013. And that's kind of our commitment. And also, I know there's a bunch of concern with regards to how we're going to fund the school and the operational cost. And I like to think we have, is solution the right word? We have a partial solution to how to, for operating costs and opening costs, obviously debt service and other issues. So I'll take any questions you have.
I noticed you didn't have Holloway on that map here. Is that just negligible change in that school?
The building of that school wouldn't impact us if we didn't put it there. I think we've got 130 at Holloway right now, and they're pretty close to capacity. I believe that's right.
Yeah.
Commissioner Schaefer?
Okay. How much does the state give us for school construction?
Not a lot.
That is, as in zero?
You know that, Jeff? No, there's some growth money that comes with kids.
The money in
For
the,
construction.
theoretically, in the BEP formula, there is capital money, but just, we
Can
do
you
not.
spend it on that?
We don't get any of it. I mean, it takes, everything else goes for the operation. There is really, the simple answer is none.
Yeah.
Well, I guess my question is, the state also gives us class sizes all the way from elementary all the way up through.
Right.
What happens if we looked at going over, I'm saying to postpone it a year or something, because, I know our debt is quite high right now. And if you can postpone it a year, then you get the debt down. If you're not, but I'm saying that this, if you go up over, let's say the middle school especially, if you go them, if you keep more kids in the middle school grade, and you got the possibility of here's something, by doing that the whole way through, you can maybe keep 6th grades at some of the elementary schools possibly for a year. I'm throwing this out. I'm talking because we're talking. To me, it's not small change.
How you going to keep them there if you're already overcrowded?
Well, that's another
well,
issue.
there's
Most
elementaries are probably the ones we're in the best shape at right now.
we're not in real good shape elementary, but we're in better shape.
You just moved out.
But I think you deal with, we don't have an option of meeting the BEP without there being financial consequences for us. Secondly, as I said earlier, it's we're under the microscope, and also many systems across the state are borderline being targeted schools because they're not making academic standards. We're doing better than the vast majority of school systems in Tennessee. I don't think it would behoove us to put 36, 37, 38, 39 kids in a math class and a science class where we're being tested for productivity. I just don't think that's a real option. And lastly, we saved an enormous amount of money building the 2 middle schools because the economy was in the state it was in. I don't know how many millions of dollars.
About 6.
Over Rockville, which was built 2 years before in construction costs. We do think this is a good time to build, and maximize savings on the construction costs. But, I don't think I know it's tough time, but I don't see how the last thing we need to jeopardize from our perspective is a good school system.
Well, I see what you're saying. I'm not saying that we don't need a high school, but I'm saying, we got a lot of other things that everybody, not only in this county, but in this state, in this country are facing, and a big thing comes January 1st if our representatives in Washington don't do something about the taxes that are all running out, the deductions, and it's really going to affect the people in Tennessee, anybody that itemizes, because the sales tax won't be deductible anymore, and you're looking at, for an average person, you're looking in the neighborhood of $1,500 paying more to the federal government. And, we're at 8.6 unemployment right now, but those figures are misleading too because they don't count the people that give up that have been unemployed for so long, and they don't count the people that are underemployed. And that's a ton of them right there, that are trying, to make ends meet. And I guess maybe playing devil advocate, because I'd love to see whether it's no good or not, some other solutions besides portables or brick and mortar.
I'm in double wise, you say you got at Laverne now. I
think we already have 8 classrooms there, 8 portables there.
They're single?
8 total. I don't know, some doubles, there might be a combination of 2.
Some of them doubles, so we move them from Kip.
Sir?
I know some of them doubles, so we move them.
Yeah, we move them. That's another thing, our portables are in terrible shape. But back to that question, I know there are other needs in the county, and maybe where you sit determines where you stand on this, but I mean, being the school superintendent, I don't know how we're here to represent the kids, and you guys have the same charge too, but do we really want to have 1,500 high schoolers stuck out there in portables? I mean, I don't know how that bodes with the economic development of the county and people that are wanting to be a part of the county, but at the very least, it's just not safe. It's just not a doable thing. It's hard for me to ask Mr. Rakes and Mr. Ash to, hey, by the way, guys, you're going to be getting 30 portables brought in there. Make the best of it, have good test scores while you're doing it. It's just not doable.
Commissioner Jordan.
The motion in Health and Ed was to approve the design, because I think everybody realizes this is the next school we're going to build, whether we're going to build it starting it next spring or a year from now. But according to Mr. Clardy at Health and Ed, we're at a drop-dead date right here now, which we always seem to be, and that bothers me some, but that's an argument for another time. Either start the design of it pretty much immediately, or we're for sure going back another year. I don't think anybody on Health and Ed was ready to vote to fund the school right now, but we can design it, and if we don't build it, we've got the design, we put it on the shelf, we use it a year from now. I don't want to throw the option away of building it during historically low interest rate times, low construction compared to the last 5, 6, 8 years and stuff, and that's why I made the motion to Health and Ed to move on with the design. Would not have voted for or made a motion or voted for a motion to move on forward with the construction. We can make that decision in the next 6 months. Get more information between now and then, but that's why that gives us, this motion gives us options. Because we're going to spend this $1.3 million sometime in the next couple of years, because this is, unless the school board all have a total change of heart, the next school we've got to build. And so that's why this motion is. I mean, I'm not saying I'm ready to vote for this motion, but I'm not saying right now I'm ready to vote to build the school. Yeah. But I'm for options.
I could agree with you on that, but I don't think we can ignore, even tonight, the long range.
You're either saying no to next year starting the school, to open in 2012 or 2013. If this was to go down tonight, and Mr. Clardy, who I trust completely, unless he's mistaken, then we are saying this school's not going to open then. And that's why this motion has come forward at this point, to give us that option.
And Mr. Schaefer's sitting there at the school's most overcrowded.
Commissioner Sandlin.
Well, I'm a little partial to this area right here because it's in my district. For many years, didn't have a school one in my district, and we had, in my district alone, kids going to all other 4 high schools. And so, and they still are, because we don't have a high school. Well, Blackman, but it's out of my area. We've got the land, we've got the sewer, we've got minimal construction there as far as leveling dirt and everything and getting ready to go. I was against, at the beginning, just like some of you were, on these 2 middle schools, because I was thinking, here we are in economic times, and what is it going to cost us and everything. Well, I was proving, even though I came in and voted for it, I was proving that, in this economic times, we got a better price on building these 2 schools, which I feel like we're going to here, and put people to work as well, and get a good percentage on our money as far as borrowing the money. This is the time, I think. you know, they're all facing the numbers. What proved it to me, and like I told our school superintendent here, it's going to be proof in the pudding. Where's our numbers? We don't need factuated numbers. Well, I mean, we don't need inflated numbers. We need factual numbers. You know, what are they right now? What are they going to be 3 months from now? Because I think they take a little dip, you know, and then they level out. So, you know, where we at? We're at about 2,000 students here. And where we're going to go? I've got constituents of mine calling on a weekly basis, I won't say every day, but on a weekly basis, concerned with their kids that's been in the system 8 years and getting ready to go to high school. Where are they going in this area? Where are they going? Are they going to go to Laverne? Are they going to go to Smyrna? Are they going to go to Blackman? And they've been in this system. And they continue to be in this system. And where the growth is, on what little growth we have, is a major majority of this northern end of the county is here. And still growing. It's a small, it's, you know, instead of putting a moratorium on growth, the economy kind of did that for us. Now, instead of us being behind the 8 ball, I think we can be in front of the game plan here, in front of the curve just a little bit. It ain't going to be much, as you can see by the numbers now anyway. But we can be in front of that curve, maybe a couple years, maybe just to breathe a little bit on a high school. We're not going to ever catch up, I don't think, anyway. But I think it's a good opportunity for us to do this. And I'm for the motion tonight, and we'll make that motion in a minute if I'm allowed to. But we're going to have to look at building this school. I don't know what we're going to do as a double-decker, or we're going to spread it out. I mean,
actually, the plan is to use Siegel's design, and you know, as a prototype, we get a 3% fee on the design, which is substantially cheaper maybe than you know, if we started from scratch and built another, probably close to 5%, probably over $2 million to design the school. And that's a 2-story school that we built in what, 2002 or 3 at $72 a square foot. Obviously, it won't come in like that now, but I think there's substantial proof there that it's a good design and a cheaper design to build. And in every school we've built here lately, you know, we've really cut back on a lot of the, I don't want to say unneeded things, but the cupolas and the columns, and kind of made a simplistic design where it did save the taxpayer money. So, but we'll use the Siegel design.
Commissioner Jernigan?
The way I read from what school board met the other night, Health and Ed, and that was school system. They come up with the funds out of their budget, and y'all just asked for approval for the design right now.
Internal bar.
Move on with that.
I'll tell.
Commissioner Schaefer?
This site plan will be good as long as it stays on that site. It's not going to change, correct? The Siegel plan?
Yes, sir.
Well, I'll go ahead and make the motion, let Commissioner Sandlin then second it. But I would like something else. I would like you all to come back for us, and let's say at our December meeting here, I guess maybe come through at the end of November for Health and Ed, and give us, I don't want to say best guess, I want it better than that for 3 years. In the next 3 years, what you plan on looking at seriously, and in the next 5 years, you know, based on the best available information. I know we've talked to Eagleville, we've kicked around Smyrna Middle, you know, there's places. We got old schools that are going to have to get renovated in this type thing, and it's only fair to them that we do it. So we're looking at a lot more, to me, we're looking at a lot more things besides the Stewart Creek High School. But I think if 2 months gives you all that enough time to come up with that.
Yeah, we do have a plan in place, obviously, and I'll be happy to bring it back. Of course, part of our dilemma is in addressing
Director Gill, we have a motion. Let's get a second, and then we'll have discussion.
So I make the motion that we approve the site plan tonight.
With the design?
Yes, with the design.
But with the stipulation that you also, are you adding that?
I trust them that they'll come back with the rest.
That doesn't have to be part of your motion?
No,
Okay, we do have a motion to recommend the design of the new Stewart's Creek High School.
Yes, I said I was going to make that in just a few minutes, but I'll go ahead.
You will second that. Okay. Director Gill.
I would just say, yeah, we'll do that. We've got a plan in place. Part of our dilemma is, and I sympathize with what Commissioner Jordan said. You know, I know it appears that we come down here the last minute asking for another school, but, you know, like this year, we're 1,200 up. We have over 1,200 kids that we've added to the roll, which is, in retrospect, a new school. You know, there have been years where we've added 1,900 kids, 1,600 kids. You know, and that's a school, you know, 1,900 kids is 2 elementary schools, or elementary and middle, or a new high school. You know, we've grown, I wish I had that at my fingertips, but I don't know, I think since I've been the superintendent, we've grown by 10,000 kids, students, or something like that, 9 or 10,000 students. So it's just, you know, I think it's, 2 things occur. One, as the mayor said, we don't get adequate funding to the state to build these schools. It falls on taxpayers. And secondly, we can't control growth, but all we can do is respond to it and try to find a place for a kid to have a seat in a building, which is what we're trying to do.
Well,
Commissioner P.
I may have missed this a while ago because mine was on another track, but the Race to the Top funds, will any of that funding be available for brick and mortar?
No, sir.
I see you shaking your head over there. I thought they might have reconsidered that, but that's mighty frustrating to see that kind of money come down to the states. And
well, we didn't get that much of it either. That's another sad thing.
And the stimulus funds make it available for brick and mortar.
Right.
And couldn't you also say that they're not available for any reoccurring operating cost either? Neither one of them.
Commissioner Schaefer.
Yeah, I'd like to add one thing to that y'all are going to bring back to us, and that's it. The Blackman, Smyrna, Laverne, and Stewart's Creek zones, proposed zones, what the free and reduced lunches are. You know, I just remember. Well, I know what they're going to come back pretty much. At least a couple of them, I'll tell you.
They'll be high at Smyrna and Laverne unless we do some creative zoning.
Mm-hmm. And the other thing is, you know, we're talking about this, but we really, in a lot of cases, when it comes to education, I don't think it's us as much as the state, but there's a lot of things they could do because driving's a privilege and not, but they have not put responsibility on the students to step up and get graduate from high school. Then there's a lot of things they could do there.
Gentlemen, we do have a motion and a second. Do we need further discussion relative to this motion? Call the roll, please.
Commissioner Jernigan?
Yes.
Commissioner Jordan?
Yes.
Commissioner P?
yes.
Commissioner Sandlin?
Aye.
Commissioner Schaefer?
Yes.
Commissioner Ely?
Yes. Gentlemen, do you want to just stay with us while we have this discussion?
I do.
Oh, you have something else you
Well,
wanted to bring. I forgot. You had your other handout that we haven't even discussed.
Do you have 1, 2, 3, 4 more, or did y'all get one?
I got one, but didn't get one down.
Yeah, I don't think, yeah.
We got a few more.
Jeff, you got more of these?
Has the,
There you go. Here's a couple
There's
right
some,
here.
I think there's some
Yeah,
right
there's
there.
some right there. Need 4 this way.
Get one for you and the mayor. Here we go.
I think, let me wait.
You want to at least make her thing?
Yeah, let's let her do hers.
Well,
Either way, sure.
let me say that I did mine quickly and without consulting Jeff. He's closer to the numbers, and so I'd rather go over his with the GPS, and I would rather focus on debt service.
There was a request from Health and Ed a week ago
Yeah.
tonight for her to come. That is fairly short notice to pull all these numbers together.
I mean, I have something, but I'd rather go over his first. And I'll sum up mine real quick, and Jeff can follow up. I didn't get past the BEP ARA money, and I've already discussed that with the superintendent and Jeff. But y'all have already discussed this part, is that at this point in this year, $13.2 million of the state BEP is being funded with ARA money, and the concern is, what do we do next year? You know, 13 million, that's about 27 cents on the tax rate. I mean, that's what it equates to us. That's where I stop and not knowing. So Jeff had additional information from
He
the
said the
state.
director, or whatever the guy was, and with the state, says they're gonna fund that. Of course, he's gotta work that through the legislature.
He's got to work through the legislature, and they've got to go through their budget process.
Yeah.
So to me, the big elephant in the room is this ARA money and what do we do next year. So that's as far as I wanted to go through it on the schools, so.
So do you want Mr. Sandvik to
To do
start
this.
with, or Director Gill, whoever is going to?
Yeah, let me take this real quick.
Okay.
First of all, I know that, speaking of the mayor, it was said last week that it's possible that, construction could be done and debt service could, what's the word I'm looking for?
Handle it.
It's
We can
sufficient
handle
to,
it. Yeah.
to fund the
Okay.
additional capital.
All right. The concern was the opening cost of the high school. We anticipated it would probably cost $3 to $3.5 million, probably closer to $3.5 million if you factor in transportation, operating costs to open the new high school. And we also anticipate 2 separate funding sources to cover those. At first, Mr. Sandvik has listed some growth recovery in local option sales tax. 7 of the last 9 years, sales tax revenue has grown between 5.9% and 14.9%.
It didn't start moving until July.
It grew from 24.61 to 37.56 million in 07-08. It did drop each of the last 2 years to 36.38 million, and then dropped again the following year. But the good news is that since March of 2010, each month has seen an increase over the same month of previous years as September, and he's got some reflections on the next sheet, and you can study those. So it does look a little more promising with respect to sales tax, I hope. All right, but let's get down to number 2, which is really I wanted to go anyway. Fund balance. The general purpose school fund balance should be able to fund some or perhaps even all of the $3.5 million. Our unexpended budget items are usually 1.2 to 2% of any year's total budget, or $3,070,000 to $5,012,000 range. In most years, our fund balance also increases because we budget the revenues conservatively. Also, I might add, if you recall in the past, we've used fund balance to buy property. We've used it to do a lot of capital repairs. Now that, I think it was 3 years ago, we dedicated 5 cents towards
Repair.
towards repair that came out of that BEP money. It's allowed us to accumulate a little money to help open these schools, which we did this year. So in retrospect, it says for the second year, Stewart Creek's operation, we will pick up approximately $267,000 in additional BEP funds. So in retrospect, we may be able to absorb all the operational costs out of fund balance, and certainly with number 1 and number 2, so that we wouldn't have to incur any kind of property tax increase. So I think there's another opportunity there. Don't look skeptical.
You don't look like
No, I'm just, no.
that.
That's my poker face. That's my poker face.
Well, I think number 2 is probably conservative compared to some of the growth numbers on the sales tax. I mean, but you got it all the way from 2% to 6%, so it'll probably be somewhere in there.
Yeah.
I think toward the lower end of it.
In looking at what it had grown in recent years, 6% was on the low side.
I understand.
Until we
But
hit
An extraordinary population growth.
Yeah, went along with it.
Oh, yes.
And if we go back to 5 and 6% growth in schools, which would match that population growth, we'd be even in worse shape as far as needing those dollars.
At least the school system's looking to see where they can find every bit of money they can to help them.
of course, this is all predicated on
I have
the
seen it when they
state
didn't.
filling the
I appreciate
hole.
it. I have seen the other side of it, so I appreciate them looking.
Yeah, but it's pretty interesting, Lisa, despite all additions, all the new schools, we could be in worse shape
Oh, absolutely.
now than we've ever been, in period. And, we could end up with 200 plus portables in use. It really scares me at high school. It's just, like I said, it's almost unmanageable.
Director Gill, you want us just to take this,
Yes, ma'am.
these numbers and for our own study?
Yes.
And now, are you ready to do your projections?
Just on the debt
specifically
service.
to the debt
Just
service?
debt service.
And you should find that in your notebooks, gentlemen.
Now, it's behind schools.
Yeah.
On this first page, and this kind of goes back to what Commissioner Schaefer had. Jeff, you've got one. This is titled Leases Assumptions Only. And just in beginning this process of looking at debt services, kind of what he's going back to is what else is on the table beside the high school in planning our debt service needs. So these top things are just things that we've talked about, is the Stewart's Creek in the fall, but we've also been talking about renovations for Smyrna Middle, additions to Siegel and Eagle. So again, that's nothing I've talked to them about, just things that we've been talking about, putting on the table. Back into the, for the general, this garage, parking garage has been there forever, it just keeps getting pushed out. But we do have road projects that we continue to have, which Joby Jackson is the one that comes to mind. And then the law enforcement building addition that at some point, another thing. And that Justice Center keeps getting pushed out. Again, these are just me doing it. This is no direction from anybody of what is needed when. And that's where I think Commissioner Schaefer was going, is we do need the plan of what your expectations are, not just on the school side, but on the county side also. Okay. So all those things totaled, things what we've talked about, that's $157 million in potential projects.
You're talking about all of them.
All those projects. Again, that's over several years too.
Yeah. If you've done all of them.
Now, you've got the support behind this, where the revenue comes from and what the debt service potentially looks like. So if you go to this page where you have to flip out the end, this is assuming we're going to refinance. We've got two capital outlay notes, one that comes due this April, $10 million, and $21 million next April. Assuming we're going to refinance those long term, that's what the next columns are after the number one column. So column 3 is the projected estimate of need based on our current debt. Now this is already after the refunding. That I'll touch on one piece right now after the refunding. Now that refunding that we did and the way we structured it saved $5.7 million. And that $5.7 million was structured into year 11, 12, 12, 13, and 13, 14. So we get some capacity. That's where we've spread the savings. So if you go to the right on number 5, and again, you've got all the numbers about the pages behind there where the revenue comes from. But under column 5, you see that we're using about $500,000 of fund balance this fiscal year. But because of the refunding, we could have capacity of $579,000 next year. That would service $7.7 million. The next year, you said excess of 1.9. Well, if you said you did 7, the next year that leaves capacity of almost 1.4. That will service $18 million in debt, assuming we borrow at 4.25. So that's just where these numbers are coming from. And then the next year, a savings of $3.5 million that would do another $47 million. So what does that add to?
$73 million,
okay.
and we could issue in
over the next 3 years. Now, that's the good news. Now, the better news on top of this is we've got one refunding more to do. This refunding that we did that we've been talking about for several years, again, waiting on all the pieces to hit right. We were looking at investment rates compared to borrowing rates. Those are the two markets that we had to monitor. So everything worked. That's where we got the $5.7 million that we did in September. The next refinancing, we only are looking at borrowing rate. So we're hoping that the refinancing that we'll be doing around December will generate maybe another $4 million or so. That will, again, give us more capacity. And then we'll try to structure that to help ease the burden of the additional capital needs. So I'm halfway. We've got part of the plan. We really need the whole plan to then put, I guess if all we were looking at with the high school, I mean, I think, we've got the capacity and debt service.
Well, fortunately, and I mean, in our community, IDB's coming tonight, but I mean, our chamber's bringing on some new things. I mean, we've got the battery plant coming on, which is right smack in the middle of this area where we're talking about this school. It's going to throw another influx of people if we can beat that curve a little bit. General Mills, announced something here. So, I mean, we've got some stuff coming, not Middle Tennessee, Rutherford County, Murfreesboro, Smyrna. So, I mean, we've got some good things coming behind those too, as far as picking us up in a great time frame and put some of our people back to work that's not working. So, I mean, there's some good scenarios too, even.
So anyway, my end of my story is that I'd like to see how our numbers play out in December, and then have the information from the schools, to give a better picture of what may happen in 2 years, 3 years.
You're still looking at 18 months on building anyway, right?
Two years.
2 years. 24 months with stadium.
Well, the unfortunate thing is you're not going to know anything from the state of Tennessee until about next June. So we're going to have to be able to have enough information, enough good information to make some reasoned decisions way before then. We're going to have to make them in January or February. We're going to have to, we don't have to borrow money then, but we'll have to borrow money sometime about this time next year. We'll have to borrow some money.
It's a year from now is where you would anticipate, I guess, when you would do the construction contract, maybe
June?
June?
We'll start in June of next year. So it'd be less than a year.
But by then we'll have some more pieces.
Right.
I mean, by June of next year, we'll have indication of what the state's doing. Some hint.
Some hint, but they usually put off that budget decision until the very, very last minute. It's going to be a very, very difficult
with a
time.
new administration.
Yeah.
Director Gill, do you have anything else you need to present tonight?
No, ma'am.
Commissioner Jordan, help me with this. Did we meet the requirements of what the request from Health and Ed was to get this information? And did they also want this to go to the full commission? So just include this in a packet?
I see the chairman of Health and Ed here, and I would defer to him.
Okay.
I believe Ms. Eda, we're in good shape. I'd like to request that all that information that Ms. Nolan was kind enough to impart, if that could go into the commissioner's boxes, certainly Health Ed boxes. I know really Commissioner Phillips particularly was,
okay,
but all of them were really interested in that. And no, there's nothing scheduled to go other than this design plan, which the commission next Thursday night.
They just know it's really preliminary, kind of on the top.
Put a cover letter on it if you'd like to.
Okay.
The information from the education system might be a good thing to put in all the commissioners' boxes.
Not necessarily.
Before the
Not mine, but I'll put my debt service.
Before the commission meeting.
This. Okay. Can we do that?
ASAP will be tomorrow.
Okay.
That way, everybody have a chance to review that before next Thursday night.
Yeah, okay, that should be, and not just, not Mrs. Nolan's projections at this point.
Thank you, Ms. Eda.
Okay, gentlemen, thank you very much. Oh,
Thank you.
Do
Here's
you have
several
extra
copies of that, compliments of the school system for the box.
Okay, thank you.
Are you disposing of all this stuff, Will?
Some of that, not this.
Okay.
What do you do?
I'll get a
Thank
set
you,
from her.
gentlemen.
I gave them my set.
Commissioner
I'll give you
Shea.
my set.
We're on this debt
She's gonna give me
subject.
her.
Could I ask Ms. Nolan what is our actual debt at this time?
Okay. If you, we're going to come to that when we talk about the refunding. I have that information.
Gentlemen, turn to section 7 in your notebooks. And we are going to do a debt service fund budget amendment. And I just was curious if some of the members might not even know that the refunding actually took place. If you remember, it was back in April that the County Commission approved resolutions to authorize a refunding, and our financial advisors have been watching the market to see when the conditions would be favorable. Well, that has happened in September, and that is what Mrs. Nolan is going to report to us, and the results of that refunding.
And it was early September that we refunded $92,715,000 of outstanding debt, and this debt has been replaced with 88.8 million of refunded debt. The true interest cost of the refunded debt is 2.4838. Now, the result of the refunding provided the county with $5.7 million of savings in debt service payments, as I mentioned earlier. So this amendment puts on the transactions of that refunding, which we received $16 million in premiums on the debt. And then you'll see that we have, this is broken out between general needs and educational debt. So that's what you see. So all that money that I told you that came in through looking at the revenue under that payment to refunded debt escrow of $104,267,885. Now, if you flip the page, there were two other sales that happened on the same day or within a day of our sale. And so what Mr. Cruz did, you see you've got three sets. One was Rutherford County, the $88.8 million. The other one was Tennessee School Board Bond Authority, did nearly $214 million. And they're a double, we're at AA1, AA2, as is the Tennessee. But the city of Huntsville, Alabama, did a $91.5 million bond, and they're at AAA rated city. So what Mr. Cruz did was take our $88 million and used their, what do you call that? Their rates that they received, and to see how much savings we would have generated using their rates. So the savings produced by Tennessee Bond Authority would have given us $3.1 million. Compared to City of Huntsville, our savings would have been $4.2 million. So, all that to say is we did better than anybody else did. Okay, and then
once a week.
Do what?
You do this every month.
He did this one, and then he did. He sent me an update for about 3 weeks later, and we still did better. The other savings, you have to pay the underwriters the discount. And it's also to show you that we also had a savings on what we had to pay for an underwriter's discount, which we paid 0.5% compared to the other two. You see, Tennessee paid 0.88%. Huntsville was real close to ours, to 0.513. So we saved twice.
Good job.
So I said, we wait for the stars, the moon, and the sun, and we had Pluto in there too. So everything is. Yes.
And the outstanding debt.
Oh, outstanding debt. That's what Commissioner. Okay, so last page. Thank you. Principal outstanding debt that we began the year was $384,030,000. We issued $88.8 million. We refunded $92,715,000. We are on board to retire $22.3 million. So our ending principal balance, if we don't do anything for the rest of the year, is $357,780,000.
Okay, I do need a motion, gentlemen. Thank you, Commissioner Jernigan, and seconded by Commissioner P. Any further discussion or questions for Mrs. Nolan relative to this refunding budget amendment? Call the roll, please.
Commissioner Jernigan?
Yes.
Commissioner Jordan?
Yes.
Commissioner P?
Yes.
Commissioner Sandlin?
Aye.
Commissioner Schaefer? Yes. Commissioner Ely?
Yes. Mr. Baker, Mr. Bolden, if you will join us, that we have two things from the IDB board. The first being in Section 8, gentlemen, a resolution preliminarily authorizing, subject to the submission of satisfactory implementing documents, the issuance by the Industrial Development Board of Rutherford County, Tennessee, of its industrial revenue bonds in one or more series in an aggregate principal amount of not to exceed $11 million to finance certain facilities for BGS Ltd. Mr. Baker and Mr. Bolden, if you will give us some information.
Okay, we've got a handout that'll kind of give you a little information on BGS rather than trying to do it verbally.
Both on here together, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah, they're both on there together.
Okay.
This will be the second project, actually.
Well, these passing them out. If we have these in the future, what about putting these gentlemen up at the top? Should have them sit through all the
We discussed that in the past.
We would
Bolden's probably charging by the hour.
Yeah.
Maybe he's requesting.
We wouldn't miss what y'all go through for nothing.
It might be $4,500 an hour, too.
450, yeah.
Okay, this first is the second one listed, of
Yeah,
course.
BGS on it, I won't bother reading it to you. You can see what we're talking about in terms of a project there. It's a good, steady project. We've been looking on it for quite some period of time. It produces good employment, and you know, our ratio is very, very nice on it, primarily because of what we're getting and doing down there under it. So, from the county standpoint, any abatements and such, we've given on this one is a very high rate of return under it. So this project, of course, is without mentioning the fact that these bonds do not impact the county credit or make it obligation or anything else under it. So, answer any questions you have on it.
Commissioner Shaker.
The VA call center, is that the drug center at the old Walmart on Hazelwood in Smyrna?
Right.
Okay. I thought maybe there was another one coming.
Motion to approve. Second.
Commissioner Jordan, seconded by Commissioner Jordan. Discussion?
Another 175 employees.
Call the roll, please.
Commissioner Jernigan?
Yes.
Commissioner Jordan?
Yes.
Commissioner P?
Yes.
Commissioner Sandlin?
Aye.
Commissioner Schaefer?
Yes.
Commissioner Ely?
Yes. And the second resolution from the IDB Board is authorizing the issuance of revenue bonds not to exceed $150 million for the expansion of the General Mills facility. And you have some information at the top of that sheet. Any questions or comments for Mr. Baker or Mr. Bolden?
Of course, General Mills has been a long-time employer in the county. Good employer, good fringe benefits, good continuous employment under it. That's a very valuable asset to our county. Glad to see them expanding.
Move to approve.
Commissioner Jernigan, seconded by Commissioner P.
Is this a 5-year type thing? Same as normal that y'all set up?
It says 10 years.
Part of it phases in after 5, and then part of it runs out for 10. The personalty runs for 5, and the realty runs for 10.
Any further discussion? Commissioner Schaefer?
We did one for General Mills about 6 years ago, maybe, 5? And 5, okay. And they have, I know this is a redundant question, but we always ask it. They have held up their end of the bargain, correct? Okay. Just like everybody to know it.
Call the roll, please.
Commissioner Jernigan?
Yes.
Commissioner Jordan?
Yes.
Commissioner P?
Yes.
Commissioner Sandlin?
Aye.
Commissioner Schaefer?
Yes.
Commissioner Ely?
Yes. Gentlemen, thank you very much.
Okay, we'll add that you had asked at the last meeting for a list of the projects that we had underway. We're still getting a little information together for that. We'll be back to the next meeting if you permit us to be and give you rundown of all the projects that we've got underway, where they're standing, and I will say they're all compliant with anything that we've done. We have one that is compliant. They haven't quite got their paperwork up, but that's coming. So, but basically, we'll be in a position next meeting to give you a complete rundown of any current projects that you've got going.
Thank you much.
Staying in Section 8, we have a recommendation from the steering committee approving a resolution for the employment of legal services for the defense of the Rutherford County Sheriff's Department.
Okay, as you recall, the new legal services agreement we have requires commission approval if we engage any attorney outside of the county attorneys contained in the Cope firm. And heretofore, over the course of many years, previous to me even being here, we have used this firm that you see here named Lightner Williams Dooley and Napolitan to represent us in federal court, predominantly for all of those cases that have been coming forth from the Sheriff's Department. But in any event, we have one case already, this case style, Luis Gonzalez Calderon versus Truman Jones, etc., that we have to defend and respond to. So this is a resolution to approve the continued use of this firm that we've used heretofore for a substantial length of time, in particular the attorney Randy Mantooth, and they've done a great job for us, and we want to continue to do that, and this allows us to engage this firm. It also allows us to continue to use them for any future federal cases that may be filed against us with respect to the Sheriff's Office. So, and they have agreed and will continue to agree to charge us at the hourly rate of $150, which is the rate that's contained for all of the legal services except for Mr. Cope from his firm. So we're getting the same value, the same cost for that. So that's the request here.
Second.
Commissioner Jernigan, seconded by Commissioner Sandlin.
I did bring up in steering, and I'd like the mayor to comment on that as well. The same question that I had is, I was wanting really for us to pull each one of these back or to go through this situation with this company on a per need basis. But if we did that, this rate might change, or may not be able to get them or whatever, but if you'd just comment on that just a minute.
Well, I mean, the rate might be an issue, but I'm really not as concerned about that as the fact, when we get these lawsuits filed, we have only a certain amount of time to respond to them. So this would put us in a position whereby we wouldn't be delinquent, you might say, in filing responses. So in this particular case, I mean, these are specific kinds of cases that typically go forth in the federal court, and these people are much better equipped than we are, and we'd like to have that flexibility. We can always change this if we find something's not working, but this gives us enough tools in our toolbox to be sure that we can work within the system in a timely manner.
Is this giving them authority, any new lawsuits that our new sheriff may have to go ahead and act on them? Is that what this is doing?
It will.
When it says other cases?
It will allow us, the mayor and Jim Cope, to have the authority to engage this firm as new suits are brought forward.
Well, I think the intent was to come to us when there were new suits.
That, I understand that, but we're asking for a little broader permission here, since these are in a class all to themselves. And
this is the same group that's done all the federal things in the past, and this is only for this one law firm.
No, it's only for that one.
No, it's only for this one law firm, that also allows for future cases that are in federal court, because this is the same law firm that historically has represented us. And some of these cases come up, and you only have 20 days or something to respond, and it has to go through the committee process. It could take 6 weeks, depending on how it landed.
That was my question in steering. That's why I was.
And during the course of time where we were, well, it won't happen. The only real block of time that we don't meet every month is in that June, July, September time, when we're just not functioning with all the changeovers that take place. So
But Commissioner P., the motion from steering did require that a report be given to the county commission each time a suit is filed. Is that correct?
We're to report that to the steering committee.
Yeah.
Each time a new suit is filed, we'll continue to update that list.
We could always pull this back at any time.
You can, absolutely.
Okay, gentlemen, we have a motion and a second. Do we need further discussion? Call the roll, please.
Commissioner Jernigan?
Yes.
Commissioner Jordan?
Yes.
Commissioner P?
No.
Commissioner Sandlin?
Aye.
Commissioner Schaefer?
Yes.
Commissioner Ely?
Yes. Mr. Nolan, come on up. Gentlemen, section 4, and Mr. Nolan has a recommendation coming from the
Okay, so
Public
they
Works
know.
Committee also, approving a proposed charge fee for non-passenger tire disposal, section 4.
We get a grant from the state of Tennessee to deal with the tires, and it's $183,000 is what the grant is. And it's changed a little bit this year to where when all the tires came into the landfill, we'd manifest them, send them to the state for reimbursement. They changed it this year to only 5% of that grant money, which is $9,150 can be spent towards that. So what we're asking to do is continue to do what we're doing with the residents with free 10 tires per year. We're going to, at this time, continue the convenience center collection. What we're asking for is if it's a non-passenger car tire, we charge $65 a ton. We'd like the language in it to read that we charge our contracted rate. That way, if our rate changes, we don't have to come back and change it. It's just, we change with the rate.
How do you define a non-passenger car
If it's-
tire? You said car, does that include a pickup truck tire?
Yes, it would pick up. Now,
some pickup trucks
back
have-
when all of us started driving, most of the cars had 14, 15-inch tires. Most of them have 17, 18, 19. So a car tire by the state is identified as a 20-pound tire. That's a 15-inch tire. Most of them are larger than that. So a car tire, you get about 100 tires to a ton. On a large truck tire, and that's the one we're having the big issues, we get 20 to a ton. This week, we've had some loads come into the landfill, 114 tires. We charge them $1 each. That's all we're allowed to charge, $114, and it's going to cost us 3 times that to get rid of them. So that's what we're trying to.
20-inch, 22.5 dump truck tires,
Yes,
semi-tires.
that's what these are.
Or agricultural tractor tires, something like that.
Correct.
Okay.
So moved.
Thank you, Commissioner Sandlin.
Second.
Seconded by Commissioner Jernigan. Commissioner P?
I got a question for you. I know several years ago, we visited Huntsville, Alabama's disposal unit down there where they incinerate, but they also have a landfill service. I don't know if they do in that county, but in Alabama, it's legal to shred tires and put them in the landfill as covered. And you know, there's mulch on the market where they've shredded tires and made mulch out of it. Of course, it doesn't have the steel in it, I don't think. But could you check and see if there's something the state can do or we can get done about having, you know, if we could shred these tires ourselves, we'd save ourselves a lot of money here, it looks like, if we could use that for coverage for landfills.
Well, these tires, this Mack Tire Recycler is who we contract with, and they do shred the tires. And then those tires go for boiler fuel, for mulch. They go for what you're talking about. It's just
I mean, if we could use it to spread on the landfill ourselves, I mean, it looks like we would double helping ourselves.
we wouldn't need that near that many. No more busy than our landfill.
Right, right.
Discussion? Call the roll, please.
Commissioner Jernigan?
Yes.
Commissioner Jordan?
Yes.
Commissioner P?
Yes.
Commissioner Sandlin?
Aye.
Commissioner Schaefer?
Yes.
Commissioner Ely?
Yes. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Now, Rob, is there a commission meeting for this too, or not?
I wouldn't think so.
You don't want to do you?
Come on.
Listen,
You'll be last on the agenda.
You want that?
gentlemen, is there
Right
anything
before
else?
Pittsburgh.
That's encouragement right there.
Anything else that needs to come before our committee? That was sort of a long one tonight. Thank you very much. We are adjourned.